Saturday, some sunny spells for Aberdeenshire and down the eastern side of England as well. We should see some sunshine. Generally, though, fairly cloudy, and where it's pretty glum, temperatures could struggle, 6-7 degrees. Again, the top temperature probably in the far northwest, where there will be some patchy rain this weekend. But apart from that, most of us staying dry with light winds, quite a lot of cloud. Some places there will see some blue sky.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Very good morning to you. It is 6 o'clock on Friday, the 21st of January. You're watching Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Does it feel like a Friday?
I've got that Friday feeling.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we've got that Friday feeling. Hopefully it'll be contagious and you get it as well. We are live right across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV. We're on your radio. You could be watching us in lots of places. You could be watching us. Tell us where you're watching us at GB News. Let us know. Maybe you're in Darlington. Maybe you're in 5 Mile Town. Have you ever been to 5 Mile Town?
I just love the way you say that, 5 Mile Town. No.
You know, you go on your way to Enniskillen from Belfast, you go Ocker, Clocker, 5 Mile Town. These are all...
I shouldn't laugh. Ocker, Clocker, 5 Mile Town.
Yeah, spell Clocker.
C-L-O-C-K-E-R.
Not even close.
Oh, go on then, tell me.
C-L-O-G-H-E.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Come on, I've never been to Northern Ireland.
Oh, well,
waiting for my invite.
You're missing a treat, so you're straight down the road from Belfast to Enniskillen, Ocker, Clocker, 5 Mile Town. So there you are, wherever you're watching us, and you know, a lot of you are abroad watching us. Somebody got in touch with me yesterday, and they said they were in Tenerife and that their picture was breaking up a bit. And I thought it was just good you were in Tenerife.
Yeah, because we've got all that crime story yesterday. Perhaps they were out spotting those most wanted in the Canary Islands. Very useful.
Crime Stoppers. Wherever you are, anyway, hopefully you'll be with us and we'll be with you until 9:30 this morning.
coming up today. Blackmail plots, intimidation and secret recordings. Sounds like a John Grisham novel, but no, we're talking about the Tory party. The Prime Minister says he's seen no evidence of the whips using dirty tactics to change the view of his detractors, despite many of them speaking out.
Well, throughout the programme this morning, we are going to be examining dirtiness in all its forms as it goes on in Westminster. There's Liz Truss. She is giving Russia a warning there. She's the Foreign Secretary, and she's saying Vladimir Putin must desist and step back from a war in Ukraine.
The US President Joe Biden said he believes Mr. Putin does not want a full-scale war and warned the Russian leader would pay a dear price if he launches a military invasion.
And good news for football lovers in Wales from today. Fans will be able to return to stadiums to watch soccer, to watch rugby for the first time since the restrictions were introduced on Boxing Day. We have our reporter there, Lily Hewitt's, and she will explain more.
So as usual, we want to hear from you. Get in touch. You can join in any of our discussions this morning by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet @gbnews. You know, you were
We're
asking
getting an
me.
insight into life of a politician, of an MP in Westminster through this whipping story today. And it's part of a whole bigger question we want to ask.
Yeah, whether or not people have a work-life balance. Has your view on work-life balance been changed since the pandemic? And we were talking about having the Friday feeling. It might become the Thursday feeling if a pilot introduced the 4-day working week is successful. It's when you pack in all your hours into 4 days as opposed to 5. Would that be something that you'd like to do? Another poll says half of workers may quit their jobs this year to get a better work-life balance.
It's okay saying you'll do that, but at the end of the day, people need to pay the bills, they need to pay their rent.
Yeah, but more and more employers are becoming aware of this, and they're trying to make the package that they offer their employees more favourable to working from home and being able to spend time doing this and that.
You're saying you and me could be sitting in our pyjamas in separate bedrooms and doing this programme together, linking up.
No, there are some jobs that will never be able to.
That would be a ratings winner, I'm telling you.
Well, in my pyjamas, anyway.
People would want to see. Here's Isabel in her pyjamas today.
No, that would be a real crash with the viewers, let me tell you. But, you know, is this something that do you think it could take off?
I think the biggest waste of space in anyone's life is what is termed commuting. Complete waste of time, and it's just disheartening. It's awful. And I know certainly in my life, where I live on the outskirts of London, I have to spend so much time going in and out of London for really silly, stupid reasons, for meetings that don't really amount to anything and whatever. And since this Zoom or Skype came along, you just wouldn't do it anymore. I mean, there's meetings I've had to go to, you know, to Manchester and back in the day just for a meeting. Now you wouldn't even think about it.
Now I can turn the video off, have a little nap.
Absolutely not.
Well, from a family point of view, you know, commuting is time that you would be spending with your children, putting them to bed or whatever. You know, spending an hour on a train as your kids are going to bed is really hard for parents. So, you know, the idea of being able to work from home for families is revolutionary. People can move further away from their workplace, afford a bigger house, and spend more time that they would be wasting on commuting.
Are you thinking about
with
any family
kids.
in particular?
Perhaps mine. It'd be nice if my husband had a bit more of a work-life balance, but you know what?
No, but that's very important, Isabel. Very, very important. Look, your stories about all of this, and I mean, there's some jobs where I suppose you just got to be there. You got to be there all the time. But there's lots of things that you could carve up. Maybe you're doing it differently. How does it work for you? How does it not work for you? What's the bad bit about it? At GB News, we're here to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, someone who hasn't got much of a work-life balance. That's the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. And we're talking about him this morning as our top story. He says he's seen no evidence to support claims that Conservative MPs calling for him to resign are being intimidated and blackmailed.
Well, that's the latest twist in what's been a politically turbulent week for the PM following those letters of no confidence and the defection of one of his MPs to Labour.
And Downing Street is said to be concerned about findings of Sue Gray's Partygate report, which are due next week.
I wish she would hurry up. We're all fed up waiting for Sue Gray's report.
Come on,
but
Sue.
anyway, more on this. We've got Tom Harwood, our political expert, who joins us now in the studio. What we're hearing, accusations of blackmail. and bullying and all sorts of things. And this comes from what is termed the whip's office, and whips, there are various whips. So could you explain to people what a whip's job is and why? Are they literally there to whip people into line?
Well, basically, yes, and the fundamental crux of the issue is that whips are the enforcers of the government. The government needs to persuade its MPs to vote for its legislation, and so there's an intricate structure of whips, a huge hierarchy whereby there's a chief whip, there are deputy chief whips, and you go down to sort of groups, the whips that have their little groups of MPs, the sort of herds that they have, maybe one whip between just a handful of MPs at the lowest level, and sort of at each of these rungs, if there's a rebellious MP, they'll go and see their lower level whips, they'll be maybe escalated to the higher level whips, and if you're being an incredibly rebellious MP, you might be sent off to the chief whip's office, and that's quite an intimidating place.
Okay.
See, in real life, that would translate to jobs and places we've been. People call line managers.
Yeah, line managers, aren't they? The pits.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, the clue is in the name, right? It's whipping. It's trying to get people to toe the party line. The question is this anything new? Is this a traditional tactic of whips' offices for whichever government's in power? And is it just that actually we've got quite a virginal intake of MPs
Yes,
who aren't
but
that experienced or used to the way it is?
Yes, but just because it was always like that doesn't mean to say it should always be like that in the future. It isn't interesting that it's been uncovered.
Yeah.
Now that it's been uncovered, will it change?
Well, there are all of these stories about how brutal the whipping operation of all parties was last century. I mean, especially during the 1970s when you had hung parliaments, when you had very, very tight votes, there were stories of people being dragged from hospital and forced through the voting lobbies, stories of people who were hiding in parliamentary loos, who were physically dragged by the whips, people who were drinking themselves silly and also dragged through the voting lobbies in the 1970s. By the 1980s, we also heard of, the famous little black book of all the transgressions that MPs might have had, that those were sort of kept from the media, but then held over them like a sword of Damocles in order that MPs would do what the whips wanted them to do. That was the sort of almost nasty atmosphere of the whips.
I think the word you're looking for is blackmail.
Potentially. Although this is always spoken about in a sort of historic context. People talk about this of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I mean, the rebels over Maastricht had an intense whipping operation against them. I think to a certain extent people thought that the 21st century might have moved beyond that, but I think it's pretty clear that
we're hearing MPs who come in and they're told by the whip, look, you better do this, you better do that, or you vote this way, and if you don't, that hospital you were looking for in your constituency, that ain't going to happen. We're going to withdraw funds for that. So really, when you look at that and you say, well, this is the consequence, I either toe the line here or my whole community does without a hospital.
And I don't know if I buy that. I mean, that's what Christian Wakeford was alleging, wasn't it? He's been saying that he was told if he didn't vote and support and abandon plans for voting no confidence in the Prime Minister's school in his constituency wouldn't be given the go-ahead, and it was vital for his community. And he said that was one of the factors that affected him. I think it was William Ragg as well who was saying that there'd been intimidation and blackmail. But, there's a system in place, isn't there? Stakeholders, planning, central government have to approve things like schools. It can't just be down to a whip to withdraw that kind of funding. And I wonder if that's really true.
Of course it can happen. Of course they can bugger up the whole system. Of course they can.
It is remarkable how the most loyal MPs often end up with the best infrastructure in their constituencies. And I think that one of the differences between what Christian Wakeford was alleging yesterday was it's usually if you vote with us, you might get something new. Or something that sort of hasn't yet been agreed might not go in your favour. I think the point in this particular constituency was a school was announced and then that might have been withdrawn, which seemed to some people to be over the line, although it has to be said there's ambiguity as to whether this was around this particular set of issues with regard to no confidence letters or if this was an earlier issue. Of course, Christian Wakeford was rebelling on a number of issues over the summer, so this could have been something from then as well. But it has to be said that William Ragg, the chair of the Public Administration and Constitutional Affairs Committee, the committee that oversees the work of the Cabinet Office, the Cabinet Office, of course, includes number 10. He was sitting in front of the Cabinet Office minister yesterday when he made these allegations, saying that members should go to the police. MPs should go to the police if they felt like they were being intimidated or blackmailed. It was a big step to make.
That blackmail works both ways. We're reading in the papers today that some of these MPs who feel they were pressurised may have actually taped proceedings or recordings of all of this and are prepared to use those recordings.
Now, I understand that one member of this sort of rebel camp has recorded a conversation with a whip. Now, that would be telling.
Oh, come on.
Now, it seems as if one has recorded this conversation, but many more have, of course, their anthologies of WhatsApp conversations, of texts going back and forth. Now, those will probably be less incriminating. Usually when a whip tries to exert their highest level of influence, it is in quiet conversations. I mean, going back even a couple of decades, we've heard stories of MPs being sort of pinned up against the walls by whips. These are not HR managers. Whips are trying to get something done. Something interesting, though, around this operation with Boris Johnson. Some senior allies of Boris Johnson that I was talking to earlier this week have been saying that a parallel whipping operation was set up over the last weekend. Not the formal whipping structure whom the Prime Minister may or may not be relying on, but a core group of Johnson loyalists who have been ringing around MPs over the weekend, who've been really trying to get people on side, who've been patrolling the 4th floor of Portcullis House, which is one of the main MP office buildings. Why is the 4th floor of Portcullis House important? That's where Graham Brady's office is, the chairman of the 1922 committee. So these Johnson loyalists who are operating this shadow whipping operation, also trying to spy who may be submitting letters to that office.
You will know this, but I'm only giving our viewers and listeners a bit of an insight into this. But one day I was in Portcullis House visiting an MP, and this bell went off, and he got up and he ran, and I went with him. And there's a tunnel from this beautifully modern building, absolutely incredible, under the road, straight into the chambers and across at the Commons.
Absolutely, and what's really interesting about that tunnel, if you notice, there's a statue of a lion and a unicorn halfway through, and that marks the official beginning of the Palace of Westminster. Once you pass that, you're into the palace.
Into the farcical land of unicorns.
Absolutely, and that goes right underneath Westminster Bridge Road. Not many people who are walking across the top of it know that MPs are scurrying down these little escalators, and that bell rings for just 8 minutes, which is the amount of time that... It's a fascinating bit of political history here.
I'm glad I brought this up now. This is
They
good.
timed the oldest MP walking from the furthest away office to get to the division lobbies. How long would it take that MP to get there to vote? So that's how long the bell rings, although one of the buildings is going under renovation right now. Some MPs are in temporary offices, so they've extended the bell from 8 minutes to 10 minutes just a couple of months ago.
Wow, that's the kind of detail we provide on GB News. I love it, Tom Harwood. Thanks for coming in, we love it.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you very much, Steve. Let's get up to date now with the news. It's just coming up to, well, it's exactly 6:15. Here are the headlines.
The Foreign Secretary has warned Russia's president to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake. Speaking in Australia, Liz Truss said an invasion would lead to a terrible quagmire and loss of life.
A Northumberland gigaplant, which will employ 3,000 people and create another 5,000 jobs, has been given the green light. Government backing for the electric vehicle battery plant in Blythe is for an undisclosed amount, believed to be around £100 million.
Train journeys could be quieter in the future, with the Transport Secretary promising to scrap what he's described as the endless torrent of onboard announcements. The RMT union's describing the move as a stunt, while charities say it could cause problems for the visually impaired.
And Adele has postponed the start of her Las Vegas residency because the show isn't ready. COVID and delivery delays are being blamed. In a social media post, she said her production team had tried absolutely everything to pull it together in time, but it was impossible. And we will deliver the newspapers to you and show you what's on the front pages. We begin with The Guardian, reporting on accusations that those whips, those Conservative whips, have been using dirty tricks, dirty tactics to intimidate Conservative Party rebels over their disloyalty to the embattled Prime Minister. I'm just really not sure why everybody's so shocked by all of this.
Exactly. The clue is in the name. They're whips. The lowest of the low, says the Daily Mirror. It reports the MP who defected to Labour was told a new school would be scrapped in his constituency if he voted for free school meals.
Times. Tory rebels could retaliate in the row over all of this blackmail. It reports that those Conservative MPs who want to oust the Prime Minister are considering publishing secretly recorded conversations with the Chief Whip.
A new Tory civil war beckons, says the Eye, as Boris Johnson's position looks increasingly precarious. It reports a cabinet minister saying the PM faces death by 1,000 cuts.
Here's the FT, also pointing towards that, saying Joe Biden has hardened his warning to Russia following suggestions of any Russian incursions to avoid severe sanctions. Ukrainian president, he has refuted the American president, saying no attack on Ukraine's sovereignty is minor.
The Daily Mail's warning unions are at war with the Prime Minister over the sudden ending of Plan B and back to office recommendations.
One of the things we're going to be talking about today, I mean, back to office and a whole work-life balance brought up from that. You're looking at the Express there. Chancellor considering plans to give one-off £500 payouts to millions of people to help them through the energy bills crisis. So cash help for millions in energy bill crisis.
Telegraph reporting schools are defying the government's scrapping of Plan B. Over 100 head teachers across England have told parents that pupils must stay masked despite the changes to restrictions.
And for the most important story of the day, we bring you to the Daily Star. Foul is the headline, referring to a lame duck Prime Minister who ducked out of a showdown with the Daily Star's new lame duck correspondent yesterday. OK, so Boris dodging an interview with a duck.
They enjoy their job, don't they, at the Daily Star? They have a lot
do.
of fun with their front pages, usually a lot of nonsense, but it's always entertaining.
Did you see last Saturday, me and my stick?
Oh, yeah, that was
I've
nonsense as
staff.
well. You were just showing them your lovely new stick.
And what's happened since I dislocated my back and I have sciatic problem now and whatever, that the people have been sending me sticks and canes, and I was referring to my friend, the actress, Sue Johnson, who said to me, you can't be going around in a crutch, even though it's a beautiful Manchester United crutch, I have to say, very, very good. So she sent me this cane to walk down red carpets, which I did with Isabel, sorry.
Who's Elizabeth?
Don't know who Elizabeth is. Isabel last Thursday night.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
it was
we
lovely,
did that.
sparkly
Were you embarrassed
cane.
with me?
Not
with my
at
cane?
all. Don't be silly. I was proud to be.
And anyway, so this man carved half a tree and basically sent it to me, and I looked like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Anyway,
we need to see evidence.
the Daily Star believe that I stroke this to it gives me magical powers to get back on my feet.
Yeah, so it's all nonsense. There you go.
But a bit of fun.
A bit of fun. Yeah, except some people do believe that. That's the only worrying thing.
Here's the Elizabeth I was thinking
yes.
of.
Is it Elizabeth Truss by any chance?
That's the very one,
yeah.
the Foreign Secretary.
Yes. What's she been saying?
Well, she has warned Vladimir Putin to step back from a war in Ukraine or risked being dragged into a long conflict similar to Afghanistan.
Yeah, so Truss delivered her message at a keynote speech in Sydney overnight. Her comments came after the US President Joe Biden said he believes Mr Putin does not want a full-scale war, but will pay a dear price if he attacks.
Let's go to our security expert. Will get us for all of this. The comparison, the analogy will with Afghanistan, interesting.
Yes, I mean, and that's the sort of conflict that is going to resonate very badly with President Putin, because certainly it has a lot of connotations towards previous conflicts that Russia has had, and it draws even more focus to the fact that Russia had a 10-year war in Afghanistan, which they very badly lost. So I think what Liz Truss is trying to say is we will put you into a very prolonged situation, which ultimately you're never going to come out of looking good.
Well, I just want to ask you about how significant it is to see the President of the United States looking frail, stuttering, almost saying it's OK to have a minor incursion into Ukraine by Putin. And this plays, doesn't it, into the hands of Vladimir, who is trying to, at the end of the day, boost his ratings in the polls at home with all of this bluster.
Yes, no, Isabel. Biden's speech yesterday couldn't have been any worse. And the moment he said with one word about any incursion was obviously going to have some very significant and drastic implications. He said, well, obviously he doubled down if there was a minor incursion, which, that sort of ambiguity inevitably Liz Truss was trying to remedy by her very robust and very bold statements. And that's exactly what is necessary, because Putin, we know, you give him an inch and he will take that proverbial mile. So we're seeing certainly Ben Wallace also enforcing the fact that there will be more British troops obviously deployed to the Ukraine, as well as places like Lithuania, Poland, and other obviously nations that are on the borders of Russia as part of the forward presence strategy, which is basically just to warn Russia, do not come across these borders. But it's also showing strength with NATO partners and EU partners that we are all going to come together to prevent Putin trying to take any territory that he's seeking to take.
Will, give us an insight there. You say the warning is there, do not come across these borders, but in effect, they're across those borders already. There has to be some sort of dark war going on in terms of sabotage or laying the foundations for a possible incursion.
Yes, no, I mean, the cyber side of things, Eamonn, you're absolutely right. And we discussed this, I think, last week, that the cyber war is going to continue, and the covert and clandestine measures that Russia is going to try and create. And bearing in mind, it provides enormous amounts of natural resource, particularly gas, into Europe. And we're already seeing the implications within the city and within the financial services sectors of what that could potentially result to us, and even down to everybody on a very basic level in terms of what their gas bills are going to be. They produce and certainly supply to Europe almost half of the gas supply that we need in Europe. However, there are other sanctions which can be imposed, and these can be done equally in a clandestine and covert method in terms of obviously putting restrictions on Russian enterprises overseas. It can also look at Russian supply of things like gas to Syria and other parts of the world, and certainly to other allies. But this needs a strong leader, and Biden is not showing to be one right now. He keeps thinking with his mouth open.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because we heard yesterday that Kwasi Kwarteng has put a stop to this power cable being put underneath the channel from France to the UK, because it turned out one of the investors was a Russian tycoon who'd been involved in fraud in Russia. Now, there have been ongoing concerns about it, but it was interesting the timing that suddenly yesterday he's decided to put the brakes on that. And I wonder if you think that's a sign of a hardening of our resolve towards Russia.
Absolutely. I mean, since 2017, the Countering America's Adversaries Act was passed by law in the Senate in America, which was a way of actually imposing sanctions on individuals. And we've got to bear in mind there are a lot of oligarchs and very wealthy Russian entities and individuals outside of Russia that are playing a drastic or a critical role, obviously, in investment into infrastructure, into commerce, into finance, right across the world. Now, that could be a double-edged sword. It could in some ways obviously restrict Russia's tentacles into Europe and obviously have implications onto their GDP. But secondly, it could also have a detrimental effect to us, because in many cases we will be looking for those financing. Now, I'm no economist. As you know, I'm a security guy. But there are issues of Russian investment into infrastructure, which does have serious implications potentially. So we have to be very cautious about what sanctions are imposed, but it does need strong leadership.
Well, really appreciate your insight. Thank you very much indeed at this early hour. Thank you. We'll take a break there. After that, we have the latest following 2 arrests in England, part of the Texas synagogue hostage investigation. But we'll be doing all that after we give you an update with the weather.
Good morning. It's a cold start out there, certainly across the southern half of the country, one of the coldest of the winter so far, with a widespread frost. Many eastern areas will stay sunny today. In the west, more cloud than yesterday, but most places dry thanks to this chunky area of high pressure that will stick with us through the weekend. So again, the weekend staying dry for the vast majority. But that high pressure and the clear skies overnight have led to a fairly hard frost. That frost, though, steadily melting away as the sun gets to work this morning. Cloudier today for Wales, northwest England compared to yesterday, and fairly cloudy for western Scotland, Northern Ireland. A bit breezy in the far northwest. A bit of drizzly rain is likely here, but elsewhere it's dry. Sunny spells across eastern Scotland, down the eastern side of England. Probably feeling a bit warmer here compared to yesterday. The winds will be lighter. Top temperatures maybe in the northwest, 9 or 10 Celsius. Generally temperatures close to average for the time of year. Through this evening, the cloud will slip a little further south, so that means it won't be as frosty tonight, but still we've got the clear skies across eastern England, so here some pockets of frost are possible, and we'll see a bit more patchy rain across the far northwest. But generally, it will be a warmer night tonight compared to last night. Still not particularly warm though through the weekend, staying fairly cloudy, and that will make it feel quite cold for most. A little rain on Saturday across the Highlands and the Western Isles, generally in brighter skies across eastern Scotland and eastern parts of England. We'll see some sunny spells. Even further west it may brighten up at times, but generally fairly grey through Saturday, and temperatures without the sunshine just struggling a little bit, certainly across the south, 6 or 7 Celsius. Again, the top temperatures probably in the northwest where it will be breezy. There's the high hanging on across the south. Weather fronts approaching the north. There will be some patchy rain in the northwest, but the weekend promises dry conditions for most, certainly across the south, light winds, a lot of cloud, some places seeing a bit of sunshine.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's 6:30 exactly. A very good morning to you. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Up next, the FBI is treating the attack on a Texas synagogue on Saturday as an act of terrorism targeting the Jewish community. 2 more people have been arrested here in the UK as part of that investigation after a British gunman held 4 people hostage.
His name was Malik Faisal Akram, a Briton from Lancashire, who MI5 investigated 18 months ago, but was not thought to be a risk to national security. The standoff lasted 10 hours. Here's a clip of the last phone call he made to his brother, leaked to the Jewish Chronicle.
Why are you doing that, man? Why are you doing that for? You know, what's wrong with you? Why are you coming
But
down
I need to do that.
You know, you don't need to do this. Whatever you're doing, man, just pack it in. You know, you'll get a bit of time and you'll come out.
Yeah.
Man, he's come back to Black. Do you know what I mean? He's come back last week. Do you know what I mean? He's done his time. You know, whatever you're doing, man, think about your kids, man. Think about these guys are innocent. You know? These guys you've got there, they're innocent people, man.
Right, really shocking stuff, that, isn't it? To hear that last phone call, awful.
Yeah.
Well, Akram's brother has apologised to the victims, said his brother was suffering from mental health issues. 2 teenagers were arrested on Sunday but released without charge.
OK, yesterday we had 2 further arrests. These were in Birmingham. Let's now go to... Who are we going to now? Right, we're going to from Manchester. Let me see who we're going to. Thank you. I don't know. I'm going to Dr. Hamid Khan. Sorry, that is the gentleman there. And really I was just trying to cut through things, Dr. Khan here, because it would have initially have appeared that Malik Akram was a bit of a lone wolf. Are these arrests suggesting that it was a bit more complicated or intricate than that?
Thank you very much, Eamonn. I believe that there is no charge on these further arrests as well so far. And as his family is saying, and as his friends are saying, commonly that the guy was mentally disabled, and he was not. They all are surprised that how did he manage to travel up to from here to Texas while he was not even mentally stable. He did not even had vaccine done, and. If, as you said as well, that he was in the MI5, a kind of radar as well. So, I mean, it is really, the whole community is saddened about the incident, and they have all the sympathies with the hostages and with the Jewish community. And we condemn any act of terrorism in any form. But on the other hand, we always say that when anything like that happened, it should be, considered with its all circumstances rather than attaching to a certain religion or certain faith. They need to look into the circumstances and it clearly sees that it might be an act of a single person rather than any other, thing behind it. But let's see what happens, because there are 2 more arrests, as you have said, but there are no charges yet. So this is the latest.
Yeah, and look, given that he specifically targeted a synagogue, I think it's fair to infer that this was an anti-Semitic attack. My question to you is whether or not, hearing that phone call, the shocking element to me is that the brother, whilst he was doing his best to talk his brother down, who was holding these people hostage.
Exactly.
He referred to a third party. He said Manny's come back and served time, which implies that there's a knowledge within their circle of other, misdemeanors within their circle, which again links to what Eamonn was saying, that this isn't a lone wolf incident. And the fact we've seen 4 arrests here in the UK would also suggest that. How concerned are you then about the problems that we've got here in the UK? And are the counter-terrorist police doing enough to try and suppress some of the extremism in the UK?
Definitely. There is no doubt that there are very, very few, people who have, this kind of approach. But the law should prevail against them, and there should not be any, any relaxation for them. There is no doubt about it. But as his brother was convincing him, he's doing his best to ask him to surrender and come back. He was trying to persuade him with his family, telling about his family and everything during in this call as well. There is no doubt that there is a lot needs to be done as well in terms of eliminating the radicalization. But on the other hand, again, when anything like that happens, I'll tell you, the Muslim community is the one who feel more vulnerable in the society as well, because when everything is painted with the same brush, it becomes very hard for every Muslim in the Britain as well. Because it's a very, very, it's less than 0.something person who would even think about things like that. So, but when anything like that happens, everybody in the streets start feeling insecure, whether it's the women wearing burqa or hijab, or a person with a beard, or anybody, because everybody has been painted with the same brush. This needs to be changed as well.
For everybody. Dr. Hamid Khan, we'll have to leave it there. Really good to get your thoughts this morning. Thank you very much. And just a reminder to our viewers at home, we'll be covering this story this morning with our national reporter, Paul Hawkins, who's on the ground in Manchester, where some of those arrests have taken place, and he'll have the very latest on that story for us throughout the programme.
But right now we'll take a break, and then you've got the papers coming with Liz Kershaw, and who's the broadcaster, and David Cameron's former press chief, Giles Kennyman. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview Channel 236.
On Sky, we're Channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Right, let's get into those newspapers, and joining me to do just that in the studio, Giles Kenningham. Giles is a former press chief to David Cameron, and beside him, broadcaster Liz Kershaw. Very good to see you both, guys. And it's politics, so Giles, we go to you first of all. And all over the papers, it's about whips, it's about divisions, it's about, will Boris stay or will he go? What does he know about whipping and whatever? What's your view on this?
Yeah, I mean, the papers have got this kind of whole, I think the eye encompasses it, Tories and civil war. There's these stories this morning around about skullduggery, that apparently the whips are trying to sort of hold people's feet to the fire and saying if you don't back Boris, there'll be huge consequences. Rumours of blackmail. You've got William Ragg, quite a sort of senior Tory, saying the police should be brought in. I have to say, the whips for years have... it's known that they strong-arm people to try and get to back the PM. How bad and how toxic these allegations are, I think, isn't quite clear at the moment.
But what you're saying is it's really relatively normal practice. It's part of the cut and thrust of being an MP.
Yeah, I think some of the sort of strong-arm tactics are blackmail, and sort of the extent of that, I wouldn't say that is. But you've got Michael Fabricant, the sort of old-school Tory MP this morning in the paper saying if he complained to the police every time the whips tried to strong-arm him, the police wouldn't do anything else. So I think this goes to a wider issue here, though, that the Tory party is a series of different factions, of different groups. It's a delicate coalition. And Boris is having to try and please 5 or 6 of them. And under Theresa May, to some extent, you had the Brexiteers and the Remainers. It was very binary. Now, you've got all these different groups, which is broken out into civil war. Amazing when you think that Boris has an 80-seat majority. But what seems to have happened is he has burnt through his political capital at breakneck speed. The issue now is, can he pull it back? Yeah. You've got a senior cabinet minister being quoted this morning saying it's death by 1,000 cuts. And I think another minister, saying that you might not kill him in round 1, but he is wounded and basically, he's on the way out.
Well, Giles, you know all about this. You've been by the side of David Cameron through his trials and tribulations. The chaos that you're describing to me, the lack of control, is that not sort of symptomatic of Boris Johnson and the type of person he tends to be? I mean, chaos seems to just reign around him.
Yeah, I agree, because everyone seems to be sort of surprised that we're in this situation. Boris has always been an agent of chaos of somewhat. People voted for him. it was quite clear what you were going to get. But it was very transactional. People voted for him because they thought he was a winner. I think someone was saying this morning, the only stock he's got, or the only thing he's got is popularity. If that's gone, then what's he trading in? So, yes. And I think this is the issue now when people are saying, oh, you've got to change the regime, you've got to change your advisor, number 10. OK, fine, but is anything actually fundamentally going to change? Because Boris, as an individual and the way he operates, is not going to change.
This isn't amazing for the rest of us who are all outside of this.
Are we?
It's like yes, but, you know, to look at another practice that goes on in a profession, it's like a soap opera. I mean, you know,
As is broadcasting. It's cutthroat, bitchy and backstabbing.
But I'll tell you an interesting thing. What I've learned through the years of broadcasting is people don't want to know the truth. They genuinely, on the outside, they want to think, well, that works that way, and Eamonn and Liz love each other.
Which we do.
Which we do. We're one of the few that do. But it's like they look at politics and they think, well, we entrust them to do what they do in that House of Commons, whatever it is, just get on with it. I'm just not sure people really want to know. It could all be chaos and a lot of bullying is going on and
it's death by a thousand cuts. If one method doesn't work to get rid of Boris Johnson, they'll try something else the next day. And as an observer, as you said, we are, as broadcasters and also as a member of the British electorate, I'd just like to remind MPs that at the end of the day, they don't choose the Prime Minister. The Labour MPs certainly don't. The Tory MPs don't choose the Prime Minister. In the first place, the MPs select 2 people, final shortlist. The Conservative Party members, 130,000 people in this country, have the final say. They're the ones that chose Boris Johnson. They're the ones, if Boris is unseated by a vote of no confidence in Parliament and they have to come up with 2 more candidates to replace him, it's those 130,000 people that decide. And then ultimately that's put to the country in a general election and the people decide. I just find it all so self-indulgent, them all fighting amongst themselves in Westminster.
But however, things change. I mean, you look at the situation, you have Trump, whether you loved him or loathed him or whatever, he was a personality, he had this cut-through thing. And then, however good Joe Biden was expected to be or is as a politician, gosh, he looks dull now in comparison. So what I'm really getting at is, right, so you remove Boris, he has this cut-through factor.
Yeah.
The public are used to now, it's like a showbiz Prime Minister
but I think
that they want.
Boris and Trump are a reaction to soundbite politicians. The public don't want those sort of anodyne politicians who speak in perfect messaging.
The way it used to be.
The way it used to be, which is why Keir Starmer has struggled so much to get cut through, because if you were to create an identical soundbite politician out of Westminster, it would be Starmer. And I think this is the issue which people are missing at the moment. What has happened is a Tory collapse, not a Labour revival. And there's a focus group in one of the papers today, which some people in the red wall seats describe Starmer as a millionaire. That's a problem for him, because that comes down to them thinking he's out of touch.
Yeah, but also he's got a knighthood. I mean, he's Sir, and he's representing, you know, what should be a working-class party.
Well, I don't think people have any problem with that. I mean, people know that Boris is an old Etonian and comes from a moneyed family and has led a life of Riley, and people don't mind. In fact, you know, I saw this article the other day by a Tory stalwart talking about the future of the BBC, and this just sums out how to touch these people are. He said the BBC should provide opera for people in Surrey and pop music on Radio 1 for people in council houses in Darlington. I mean, please, that's so insulting.
And he thought that was a compliment, did he?
Yeah, he thought that was supportive of the so-called red wall seats. People are aspirational. They look at people and they want the same things.
Let me tell you, see that word aspirational? I remember once saying to a boss in broadcasting, why are we doing, I mean, literally the competition, it was a competition, and it said, does Bill Clinton live in the Blue House, the Black House, or the White House? And I said, why do you even bother? As a working class person, I thought, part of the skill had to be in working out the answer or whatever. And do you know what he said to me? What you don't understand is this is aspirational television, right? Aspirational television. And this is always posh blokes telling the rest of us what they see TV to be. Because TV to me was Blue Peter, it was Horizon, it was Zoo Time, it was lots of different things that educated me.
You've got a good point there about Blue Peter. I watched Blue Peter in a terraced house in Rochdale, and I saw Valerie Singleton. It was like your posh auntie you never had, and all the children I portrayed on Blue Peter lived in lovely sunlit gardens. We didn't have a garden, so it didn't turn me off Blue Peter.
But I learned about Captain Cook, I learned about travel, I learned about scientists, I learned about space travel, all sorts of things like that. And that's what I think the disgrace is of broadcasting today. Broadcasting, what they term as aspirational television now, is winning money in a competition. You know, that's what it's supposed to be.
But don't underestimate the electorate out there, because they can see the bigger picture here, and they can see that there are several attempts at the moment to undermine democracy.
Well, guys, look, I've enjoyed the conversation. They're very, very good. We've so many more subjects to talk about, and Liz and Giles will be back every hour throughout the programme between now and 9:30. Isabel.
OK, we are talking about the work-life balance now. A new report says that 1 in 4 people are thinking about quitting their job by just not turning up. We're going to speak to Sakari Cooper now. Very warm welcome to the programme to you. I wonder why you think this is happening now then. Is this all precipitated by lockdown?
Yeah, I think it has, Isabel. What's happened is we've been off working remotely, most of us, for nearly 2 years. A lot of reflection time. I think we've been thinking about our jobs, life in general, but we've been thinking about, do I really like my job? How have I been managed during this period of time? Do I like my employer? And in that reflection period, it's called the Great Resignations. A lot of people are actually shifting their jobs. And this is particularly the Z generation, the millennials, who, you know, want good quality of working life. They want better work-life balance. This survey that you're talking about showed that they substantially wanted better quality of, not only quality of working life, but better work-life balance. They wanted to work more flexibly. And there are employers, some dinosaur employers, that are saying you have to come back in the office 100% of the time. None of this working partly from home, partly from a central office. Hybrid working is out. Well, they don't want that. The other thing I think has affected them, and you find this in the survey, but we knew this anyway from a lot of the research that's been done during the pandemic, is the way they're being managed is not very good. We tend to have in the UK, and by the way, not just the UK, in other developed countries, we tend to promote people to line management roles, our bosses, based on their technical skills, not their people skills. And during the pandemic, I think a lot of people have realized that their boss doesn't have really good social skills, didn't recognize that I was having difficulty coping during this period of time, overloaded me, gave me unmanageable workloads, a whole load of things. It made them then, and they had the time to reflect on this, working substantially from home. And they said, you know what? I don't like the job I'm in, and why not do something important? I mean, this has made me reflect on life generally. This is a health threat. Potentially, you know, quite a serious time, and I don't particularly like the way I've been treated, and I just want to go elsewhere, and I want to do different things.
Sakari Cooper, I can just hear my dad's voice in the back of my head shouting at me during this interview and saying, oh, people just need to, you know, toughen up and put in a hard day's graft. All these snowflakes complaining that it's not good for their mental health. Jobs need doing. The economy is going to fall apart, isn't it, if we suddenly turn into France and say no work calls at weekends, or we can only do 36 hours a week?
But you know what, Isabel? Let's take a look at the country. Pre-COVID, even now, if you look our productivity per capita, it's lousy. So pre-COVID, we were tied 7th in the bottom of the G7 with Italy and 17th in the G20 out of 20 countries. So come on, our productivity has never been very good the last 10 years. We talk about the productivity puzzle. Politicians are talking about it all the time. We want to up our game, don't we? We want to be more productive. We want to have less stress-related illness. Incidentally, pre-COVID, 57% of all long-term sickness absence in the UK economy was for stress, anxiety, and depression. So we have high sickness absence rates, one of the highest in the developed world, and where our productivity is pretty poor. So what we were doing pre-COVID wasn't particularly brilliant. as an economy. Hey, we just want to up our game. We want to be a robust economy. We want to get back to where we were maybe 20 years ago, where we're top 4 country, fourth in the world in terms of our economy. So let's do something about it. I think what they're saying, the new generation won't tolerate what maybe your dad tolerated. And I think that's it. I mean, you know, maybe I would have said years ago, I would have said, oh, yeah, but I have a mortgage to pay and this to pay for. Therefore, I'll stay in the job even if I don't like it. Hey, the kids won't do that.
Yeah.
The Z generation, the millennials won't tolerate it. And we need to up our game as an economy.
And fair enough, but I just wonder where the evidence is that productivity actually goes up when people are working from home. Do we know that that is the case? Because surely there's far more distraction, especially if there are children. People go and answer the door every time an Amazon delivery arrives. They empty the dishwasher in between meetings. There are more distractions. And a lot of people, just to finish my point, a lot of people take advantage of it, don't they? They use that time to trick their employer. Their employer actually has no idea what they're getting up to.
I think you're missing the point, because hybrid and flexible working, Isabel, is not remote working. What we did the last 2 years was remote working. That's 100%. If you look at the evidence, 95% of people, roughly, want to work flexibly. That means partly in a central office, partly at home. What they want is more flexibility. They want to just be treated like adults. They want to say to their employer, hey, look, there's no point in me coming in every single day. The stress of the commute, 2-hour downtime, 2 to 3 hour downtime coming in and out of London, for example. But they don't want to work 100% remotely. That's not what they want to do. They just want to be treated like adults and be told by their employer, hey, listen, why don't we figure out a way, given the nature of the role I do in my job, if I could work, come in when I need to come in, to team build, to schmooze, to develop products and services, the water cooler effect, and so on. But I don't want to have to do that every single day and then end up being, like the UK is in Europe, the longest working hours and not necessarily the most productive.
The point, I actually agree with what you're saying, but I'm just putting the alternative position. Good to talk to you this morning. So, Kerry Cooper, lovely to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Well, it's amazing now. We're talking there, Sir Kerry Cooper talking about technology and how we all want to work and whatever. While that interview was going on, I was talking to a lad I know, Alex Belfield, and you may think what's unusual about that, but he is at 42,000 feet on a British Airways airplane coming from Los Angeles, and he is watching this program this morning via YouTube. So that is incredible. And we're going to give shout outs to people who are watching from unusual places and faraway places very, very shortly. But I think that will take some beating. 42,000 feet in the air on a British Airways airplane. Incredible. And good morning, Alex. Good morning from us to you, or I don't know if it's good night or wherever it is for you as well. But talking about technology, medical technology now, a world-first pilot. It's called HEART. And what it aims to do is identify any of us at risk with cardiovascular disease. I want now to go to Professor Amit Fouad, who is chief investigator of the study. And he's a specialist in cardiology as a GP and a professor at Durham University. Professor, lovely to see you.
Good morning, Eamonn. I'm here in Darlington, so thank you for mentioning us, Liz. And we do listen to opera, classical music, and pop music in the Northeast.
Of course, the way it should be. This study, is this exciting you as well? Because, cardiovascular disease, it remains a big killer.
Absolutely, Eamonn. The estimated cost of cardiovascular disease to the NHS is around 9 billion annually. And if you look at the wider costs to the UK economy, the British Heart Foundation estimated it to be about 19 billion. So this is a very exciting study, because what we're trying to do is identify patients who are at increased risk of cardiovascular disease, who may go on to have a heart attack or stroke at an earlier stage by using more detailed genetic testing which we've added to our traditional risk scores, which include looking at cholesterol, smoking history, blood pressure, etc. And by doing that and identifying those patients, hopefully we can manage their risk at an earlier stage. If need be, also offer them treatments that we know are effective for reducing the risk of having a heart attack or having a stroke. And I'm very honoured and excited to be leading this project, which is a collaboration between
Professor,
the NHS.
it will be incredible, and it will get a lot of people really interested, and they'll be saying, when can this apply to me? When can I get this test? And I would be one of them. I had a father who died of a heart attack, a brother who's had a heart attack and survived it, another brother who's had a stroke. And you talk about, you know, all the traditional indicators as to when you would be at risk. But yet when I go for a test, things seem to be okay. I seem to pass whatever tests I'm supposed to pass. I'm not a drinker, I'm not a smoker either. But what I sense with what you've got, and you say there, this is exciting, is that we're going to get more, we're going to be deeper, we're going to be more accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly what we're hoping to achieve. The question as to when you will get it, Eamonn, obviously we need to do the study to see that it's acceptable in primary care to patients and to GPs. We are aware that we've got the genetic expertise to be able to deliver this. And currently we're doing NHS health checks on patients 40 to 74.
Yeah.
But hopefully, if we can come up with positive results, we can then, in the future, embed these sort of extra tests within a single blood test in primary care to help people like you and others like myself.
Yeah, look, sorry to cut you short. We have to leave it there. But, you know, it sounds like a really groundbreaking trial, and we wish you the best of luck for it.
Thank goodness for people like you, Professor, doing it. You know, so thank you very much indeed. I always get very excited by people who, you know, can do that study in science and innovation.
Yeah.
And people like the Professor there. Thank goodness there are people like him. OK, we're going to take a break. Back after this. Stay with us. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Hello there, good morning. It's just turned 7 o'clock on Friday, the 21st of January. You're watching Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
You are very welcome, live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, we're on your radio, we're on your YouTube, anything else you can think of?
GB News app.
Yes, oh, very important.
There you go.
Very, very important, that one as well. So coming up this morning, blackmail plots, intimidation, secret recordings, sounds engulfing the Conservative Party. Prime Minister says he's seen no evidence of the whips using dirty tactics to change the view of his detractors.
It's good news for football lovers in Wales. From today, fans will be able to return to stadiums and arenas for the first time since restrictions were tightened on Boxing Day.
Plus, we're going to be live on your doorstep with our reporter, Will Hollis, who's out and about in, well, if your doorstep is in Nottinghamshire today, I think Eastwood is the location, finding out what you think about the issues that we are going to discuss. Remember, your views become our news.
And don't forget, you can join in our discussions by emailing us at gbviews@gbnews, or you can tweet at GBNews.
A big thing, and you've just done an interview there on work-life balance, and this resonates. People have various views on this. People say, look, I need a balance in my life. I need to be with my children. I need to stay in touch with my health and that sort of thing, and my mental sanity. And then there are a lot of people who say, you're just a slacker, right? So you're not turning up to office. You're swinging the lead on all of this. But I think there's an awful lot. I think technology means that we can do both. We can work and we can still be at home.
Yeah, look, as usual, you're always going to have the people that want to go to the office and work longer hours than anybody else. You're always going to have the lazy people who can't be bothered to pull their weight. But I think somewhere in the middle there is a legitimate argument that, you know what, it's 2022. We don't need to always be in the office all the time. We're adults. Let's try and find a hybrid.
And it's good for the planet as well.
It's good for the planet. It's good for families. I mean, how many families don't actually get to be with their children?
Yes.
You know, working parents now. Two parents have to work to pay the mortgage and never get to raise their own children.
What's that saying? Is it never on your deathbed will you hear anyone say, I wish I had have spent more time at the office. So it's interesting, but you do have to put in, you know, there has to be a work ethic and there has to be a sincerity attached to your job and the people who are paying you to do things. But I think there can be a better way. When I look up at my life and I think travelling into London, 1 hour 15, travelling out of London, maybe 2 hours or whatever, depending on the
waste of time,
the traffic, whatever it is. But there's 3 hours of your day, every day, well, 5 days a week, wasted.
Yeah, and the benefit of not having to commute all the time in and out means people can move away from the capital and afford bigger houses and all the rest of it. Not that I'm not speaking from experience, but, you know, that would be quite nice one day. But you know what? Lots of people getting in touch on this story. And I have to say, Eamonn, people getting in touch from all over the place.
What do you mean by all over the place?
Well, Devon and Welwyn Garden City, but actually Kona in Hawaii. That was Bruce. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah,
Hawaii.
Ed in Gstaad in
Aloha
Switzerland.
From Hawaii. I do have to say,
here we go.
My most favourite album in the world is Elvis' Aloha from Hawaii.
Come on, sing it. Sing a song.
No, I mean, it's just not. There's so much.
Started hoolering. Ed is joining us from Gstaad in Switzerland. We've got Gary in Baku in Azerbaijan.
You're pulling my leg.
And we've got Lorraine in County Kerry, South West Ireland. So they're all over the place. But anyway, what are they saying? Yeah. David said work-life balance is paramount to mental health and productivity. Interesting point about productivity. It's a win for both sides. We are currently at the starting point of development for our own work-life balance.
Well, we're going to talk about a work-life balance and an insight into the work of an MP now, because Boris Johnson says, you've heard all this talk about the whips whipping. He's saying he's seen no evidence that support claims of this, that Conservative MPs are calling for him to resign, and as a result, they are being intimidated, they are being blackmailed.
Yeah, it is the latest twist in what's been an incredibly turbulent political week for the Prime Minister, following letters of no confidence and the defection of one Tory MP to Labour.
Well, the Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire is Andrew Bridgen, and he joins us now. And, you know, if anybody, we're speaking to you, Andrew, it's really interesting. Sorry, my earpiece keeps popping out today. It's because it's not my own. That's another work-life balance thing, isn't it? You know, you want to highlight this. You want to talk about this. This is over all the front pages today, and we want to get an insight into being an MP and the role that whips play in your life. So what does a whip do? Who is a whip? How do you become a whip?
You're asked to become a whip by the Prime Minister. You're appointed. The whip's office is effectively the Prime Minister's Praetorian Guard. The rest of the MPs are divided into flocks, and you're given one whip who you speak to on a normal basis. Above that, you have the Deputy Chief Whip. You have the Chief Whip. If you want released any time from Parliament when the whip's on, you have to get permission from the whip's office to miss a vote or not be there.
What is the difference between that and a three-line whip?
Three-line whip, you've got to be there and you've got to vote with the government. A two-line whip, if you're there, you must vote with the government. And a one-line whip, you neither have to be there or vote with the government.
Now, look, everybody watching this will know that you're not Boris's biggest fan. I'm right in thinking, aren't I? You've submitted a letter of no confidence to the Prime Minister, so you will probably, I'm anticipating, be critical of the way he's been whipping. But I just wonder, do you think that a lot of the people, perhaps the pork pie plotters who are relatively new to Westminster, are just surprised by some of these so-called dark arts that the whips use? Is it really that much worse than in the past?
I think it is. I mean, I was involved in efforts to put a no confidence motion on David Cameron and Theresa May. That was over policy. And I've never witnessed the degree of intimidation that we've seen at the moment. I think it's a sign of desperation.
But is that because these new MPs, this new cohort, are actually just a lot harder to control?
No, it's a change in culture. And I think there's something there, isn't there? When we're talking about a culture in number 10, which meant that people were doing basically what they wanted and breaking the rules when the rest of us were being told what to do and threatened with criminal prosecution. And now we've got a change in culture in the whip's office. I think there's something in common there.
Do you believe the Prime Minister when he says he knows nothing about this, he hasn't seen any evidence of this?
I doubt there's much evidence, but although some of my colleagues are now claiming they've got recordings and text messages, which would count as evidence, most of it is done verbally. It would be verbal intimidation.
But he would know what the culture, wouldn't he?
Of course, the culture's set, just like it's set at number 10 by the man at the top. So is the culture in the whip's office.
But what's the purpose of all of this infighting within the party? Because we're hearing these rebels now threatening to go public with some of the whip's disagreements with these naughty MPs, as it were. What's the end game here? You obviously want Boris out. I mean, a lot of people are saying this is just playing into the hands of Sir Keir Starmer.
This is a fight for the heart and soul of the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is the most successful political party in the world, bar none. It'll be hopefully around a long time after I'm long gone and all the current MPs are long gone, and it will survive. But this is a fight for, at the moment, for the heart and soul of the Conservative Party. The whips have let it be known to me that coming on television or radio and saying things about the Prime Minister is hurting the Prime Minister. Well, personally, I think, and I mean my association in North West Leicestershire, we think that the actions of the Prime Minister is hurting the Conservative Party. And the Conservative Party is bigger than anybody.
The big fear, of course, when you've got these red wall MPs, they're worried about their jobs. They're worried about, how they pay the rent, I suppose, at the end of the day in basic terms. And then you've got a whole section of the party will think that Boris is the only man that will get us elected. He is the cut-through Prime Minister. So you think there is someone else who is electable, who will cut through to the red wall areas and the rest of the country, or not?
Boris is a formidable politician. Fantastic charisma, great cut-through on the doorsteps. He likes people. However, when we see what's been going on in the culture in number 10, I think he's broken the bond of leadership and followership in that he's asked people to make sacrifices, demanded that people make sacrifices which he and his team around him were not willing to make during the lockdown. I don't think that trust is coming back. We have a mechanism for selecting a new leader. That's well tried and tested. And I think there is considerable talent in the parliamentary party. It won't be somebody probably with Boris Johnson's charisma, But I don't want to be cruel, but I mean, you haven't got to have an awful lot of charisma to out-charisma Keir Starmer, have you?
No, but I mean, you saw PMQs, you were in there presumably on Wednesday. The Prime Minister pointed to the long list of successes that he had. Of course, he's pointing to the brave decisions he took on easing restrictions. He points to the fact that Labour would have had us in lockdown before Christmas if they had their way. He pointed to the fact that through Brexit, which he delivered, we came out of the European Health Authority, which means that we got vaccines out very quickly. I mean, a lot of people, yourself included, have a lot to be grateful to Boris for. I wonder who you think would be better then and what would be achieved by a 3-month infighting leadership contest.
It's easy for the Prime Minister to be brave over the COVID lockdown at Christmas when he's got 101 of his own MPs, myself included, who basically told him we don't even need these restrictions at all. And we probably wasted £30 billion of lost economic growth and cost by having those Plan B restrictions in. It was easy for him to resist a harsher lockdown. He knew that 54 letters would have been in had he cancelled Christmas. That's not the whole situation. But at the end of the day, when we're in a situation where well over half of the people who voted Conservative in 2019, only 2 years ago, now think the Prime Minister should go, that's a serious situation. It's the overwhelming majority of people in the country think that the Prime Minister has broken trust with the nation. I personally believe he's lost the moral authority to lead, and that's essential for any Prime Minister, because in any emergency where he's got to ask the public to make sacrifices for the greater good, he doesn't have that legitimacy.
But who do you want then? And why now, when we've got the cost of living crisis and all of that, would you want a 3-month, at least, leadership contest?
Because I think Boris Johnson is such a drag on the Conservative Party ticket now. He's so compromised. And we've got local elections coming up in May.
You just think it's the right thing to do, don't you?
I do. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm grateful for what he's done, and I really wish the Prime Minister would see the writing on the wall and go voluntarily while there's residual goodwill for what he has done that's good. Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to get very, very messy and very, very nasty.
OK, you've been very clear, Andrew, about all of that. I'd like to take advantage of you while we have you here. But we're having this debate today about work-life balance, and I get a great insight into the life of an MP because I spend a lot of time in airports going between Belfast and London. Therefore, I know all the Northern Irish MPs and how they travel and how blooming hard they work. Now, I know people say, oh, they get 80 grand a year. Oh, they get weekends off. Oh, they get this. I wouldn't want to do it. I tell you what, if someone turned to me and said, would you be an MP? Genuinely, mate, whether I would agree with your politics or don't agree with your politics, I actually respect people of all hues who do what they do out of a commitment and a belief and a passion, which people mistake. The job, tell us about the job. I'm not asking you to start crying about the job or whatever it is, but say work-life balance. Is it a hard thing for you to achieve?
It's difficult at times, especially if you've got a young family, because effectively when you get elected to be a member of Parliament, you're representing about 100,000 people, including the under-18s.
Whether they voted for you or not.
Absolutely, that's your duty. And effectively, you've got your wife and your children, you've got responsibilities to them, but suddenly you've got huge responsibilities to a bigger family that's 100,000 people. And there'll always be one of them or lots of them who've got, serious issues that really need your help. You do come across a lot of very, very sad casework, which really, I find it eats into your emotional capital quite a lot. Yeah. And that sometimes then reflects, causes problems in your relationships because you're carrying, a lot of very tragic stories with you, and you want to help them. Plus, also, when anything emergency happens in your constituency, which can happen any time of the day or night, 7 days a week, you're always on call because you'll be expected to know exactly what's happened.
What would make your job easier, the job of an MP easier? I mean, telecommunications, do you always have to be in the House, or could you be there virtually via monitor? Or
We used virtual voting and speaking during the lockdowns. I think you lose a lot of the atmosphere of the Chamber of the House of Commons. It is adversarial. Not everyone likes it. In politics, you can die a terrible death every day in that chamber once they get used to how to deal with you.
Yeah.
It is gladiatorial and it's adversarial, but it leads to very, very good debate, and I think that makes for better legislation. So without being together in that chamber, I don't think we're as effective. So it's very difficult. The sitting hours, on Monday, we sit until 10 o'clock and vote. It could be 10:30, could be 11 o'clock when we finish. And people, well, it's travelling down day, but a lot of people, we get in there at 8 in the morning. By Wednesday, you've done a lot of hours.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the best way to get the best
But it's
out
only
of people.
Wednesday.
But it's only Wednesday.
I mean, do you see the day when politicians will be able to bring their children in? Should they be able to bring their children in to be close and all of these things, or is work and family?
I've got a 3-year-old who's going to the creche in Parliament. I don't think there's been a debate about breastfeeding mothers being allowed to bring their children, babies, into the chamber. I'm not convinced that's a good idea. I don't know how old you'd be able to set the bar at whether they could come in the chamber or not. And quite honestly, Eamonn, I don't think the chamber of the House of Commons is necessarily the best environment for babes in arms. Certainly not if I'm in there and it's a heated argument.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, actually, and I'm pro-breastfeeding and I'm a feminist, as you know, but I don't really think children in the workplace is necessarily appropriate, and I don't think that the House of Parliament is any different, but...
Well, look, we touched upon that, Andrew, and thanks for your insight, your honest insight on all of that. I think it's very important that people are educated into the lives of their MPs and the work that they actually have to do, as opposed to all of the stuff that we talk about on programmes like this. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed, and your views. Let's get up to date with the headlines with the time at 7:17. The Foreign Secretary has warned Russia's president to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake.
Speaking in Australia, Liz Truss said an invasion would lead to a terrible quagmire and loss of life.
A Northumberland gigaplant, which will employ 3,000 people and could create another 5,000 jobs, has been given the green light.
Government backing for the electric vehicle battery plant in Blythe is believed to be worth around £100 million. The insulation industry is warning 30,000 jobs will be lost if the government cuts or suspends a levy which funds energy efficiency. In a letter to the Prime Minister, the Insulation Assurance Authority says the move will cause long-term damage affecting some of the most vulnerable households in the UK.
Train journeys could be quieter in the future, with the Transport Secretary promising to scrap what he has described as the endless torrent of onboard announcements. The RMT union is describing the move as a stunt, while charities say it could cause problems for the visually impaired.
And Adele has postponed the start of her Las Vegas residency because the show isn't ready. She's blaming COVID and delivery delays. In a social media post, she tearfully said her production team had tried absolutely everything to pull it together in time, but it was simply impossible.
OK, it's coming up to 7:20. Thanks for your company this morning, Eamonn and Isabel, with your GB Breakfast News. But we don't just stay here in the studio. We get out and about right across the country, sometimes to places you've never even heard of. And I bet you very few of you will have heard of Eastwood. But our reporter Will Hollis has. He's there. He's in Nottinghamshire, where Eastwood is. Tell us more about it, Will.
Good morning, it's Friday. We've made it to the end of the week. Just to give you a bit of an idea of where we are, our bearings. Over in that direction, you'll be in Heanor in Derbyshire. Over in that direction, that's where you go towards Nottingham, and about maybe a mile away, that's where the M1 is. But this isn't geography class, Eamonn. This isn't geography class, Isabel. This is on your doorstep, where we get out into the real communities, meeting real people and talking about the day's issues. Sometimes we'll talk about the politics, sometimes we'll talk about those everyday conversations. And right now we're on Eastwood's High Street to see who might be available. Now the lights are on inside of the Dog and Parrot. I think that this is the local. There is somebody inside there. Hi, good morning. Hi, are you the landlady?
I am, yes.
Is it okay if we just come in and have a bit of a chat about what's going on at the moment?
You're welcome.
Lovely. Let's just squeeze through this door. Just watch that there. Oh, and it's lovely and warm. I will say it's absolutely freezing today in Nottingham. I checked the temperature not too long ago. It's around about 0 degrees, but it is lovely and warm in here inside of the Dog and Parrot. We've got a fire going. You're the landlady. What's your name, sorry?
Catherine Bone.
Catherine, we're talking today about work-life balance, managing your personal life alongside the things like running a pub. What's it like running a pub in the year 2022?
Excellent. I mean, it's been really, really hard over the last couple of years, obviously, with the restrictions. But the community has really, really stepped up and looked after us. You know, we had the 6 months that we were virtually shut completely. We still had the community, we still had a link in with people. So we are a community pub.
And work-life balance, late into the night, running a pub. What time do you usually finish your shift?
We call last orders about 11:45. We normally finish for about 11:30, 11:45, depending how busy we've been. Get home about 12, 12:15, then sort of try and unwind for about an hour or so. So yeah, so it's a late night, early morning, but I enjoy it, really enjoy it. Myself and my husband run the pub.
And where does it fit into your personal life? Are you got children? Have you got family commitments? How do you manage running a pub, which is obviously quite an essential part of a community for most people? Where does your life fit around your responsibility and your obligation to your community?
Yeah. Well, my son Callum, he's just left home in November. He's 23 with his girlfriend Sally. So we started the pub 5 years ago. Well, next month, 5 years next month. So he was about 18, so it sort of worked quite well around then. I think any earlier it wouldn't have been ideal for work-life balance for somebody with a young family doing late nights, etc. There is staff that's got family, but we try and work around with them as well. So yeah, we're very much a family-orientated pub.
It's around 1 in 4 people, the statistic we're talking about today, that would like to just leave their job, resign, never show up to work again. What would be the effect of if you didn't open the Dog and Parrot one day and your customers couldn't come in and have a wet one?
I think they'd bash the door down. No, we wouldn't do that. We're very, very much a community. I can't ever see shutting. I love it. It's my heart and soul, myself and my husband. The team that we've got are absolutely fantastic. They were customers and they've gradually come in and become team members. They're not staff, they're family. The Dog and Parrot family. When anybody comes in, they become part of the Dog and Parrot family, and that's what we're about.
It is a beautiful pub. I know that you've got a lot of connections to the community. I know that you do a lot of stuff for remembrance and for veterans. So it's really nice to come in somewhere in Eastwood where there's clearly a place for people to go and enjoy. There's obviously a lot of places up and down on this high street. So we're going to be on your doorstep this morning, live on GB News, on TV and on radio. So don't go anywhere. There's plenty of facts and figures on the way.
Yes, well, thank you very much indeed for that. It was just interesting that Will interprets being on your doorstep as in the pub.
I know, all of them do, though. This seems to be a common theme. It's not just Will. Bradley loves a pub. Lily loves a pub. They all do.
Well, you listen, have a coffee or a cup of tea or something, warm yourself up, and we look forward to finding out more about Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. Thanks, Will. Thank you very much indeed. And look, if you think we should come and visit and you've got a community that has got a lot to say about what's in the news, tell us, ask us, get in touch at GB News and we'll be happy to come and knock on your front door.
Now, after the break, we're going to be talking about Emma Raducanu. She had a bit of a shocker yesterday in Melbourne. But first of all, here's your forecast.
Good morning. It's a cold start out there, certainly across the southern half of the country, one of the coldest of the winter so far, with a widespread frost. Many eastern areas will stay sunny today. In the west, more cloud than yesterday, but most places dry thanks to this chunky area of high pressure that will stick with us through the weekend. So again, the weekend staying dry for the vast majority. But that high pressure and the clear skies overnight have led to a fairly hard frost. That frost, though, steadily melting away as the sun gets to work this morning. Cloudier today for Wales, northwest England compared to yesterday, and fairly cloudy for western Scotland, Northern Ireland. A bit breezy in the far northwest. A bit of drizzly rain is likely here, but elsewhere it's dry. Sunny spells across eastern Scotland, down the eastern side of England. Probably feeling a bit warmer here compared to yesterday. The winds will be lighter. Top temperatures maybe in the northwest, 9 or 10 Celsius. Generally temperatures close to average for the time of year. Through this evening, the cloud will slip a little further south, so that means it won't be as frosty tonight. But still, we've got the clear skies across eastern England, so here some pockets of frost are possible, and we'll see a bit more patchy rain across the far northwest. But generally, it will be a warmer night tonight compared to last night. Still, not particularly warm though through the weekend, staying fairly cloudy, and that will make it feel quite cold for most. A little rain on Saturday across the Highlands and the Western Isles, generally in brighter skies across eastern Scotland and eastern parts of England. We'll see some sunny spells. Even further west, it may brighten up at times, but generally fairly grey through Saturday, and temperatures without the sunshine just struggling a little bit, certainly across the south, 6 or 7 Celsius. Again, the top temperatures probably in the northwest where it will be breezy. There's the high hanging on across the south. Weather fronts approaching the north. There will be some patchy rain in the northwest, but the weekend promises dry conditions for most, certainly across the south, light winds, a lot of cloud, some places seeing a bit of sunshine.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Right, we're going to bring you some back page news right now, and the Australian Open tennis didn't go the way you wanted.
No, I cleared my diary, I sat down and she let me down. Emma Raducanu claiming blisters as the reason.
Did she let you down? Do you feel like she let you down?
Well, I don't want to
You were such a fan yesterday.
I am.
You're such a turncoat.
Do you know what annoys me is that she came out and said that her team said that she'd been advised not to play because of the blister situation. Right. It's like, follow the advice of your team then. Yeah. Don't put us through all of that. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was quite traumatic.
See, the thing is, the blister thing, I'm even holding my hand out thinking about this. It's due to the fact she hasn't played tennis, so she'd been off. But it amazes me, really. I just thought that even maybe I'm completely off base here, but you'd kind of think that the team would be thinking, keep the hands hard. You know, if you're feeling unwell, at least grip a tennis racket. It just seems that I don't think I've ever seen a tennis player that's actually ended up with blisters on their hand. But it stopped them playing.
Had she got bandages on or anything to protect herself?
Yeah, well, then they did put something on there. Yeah. But, you know what it's like with it.
It's an awful injury. It's an awful thing.
So she's having to pretty much spin the ball and keep loose hands. They're soft hands on the tennis racket. It just didn't work out. And so she couldn't play with the blisters.
Yes, but the question is whether we start to write her off. Do you know what I mean? No, I don't want to, but, you know, it's so British, isn't it? We get a little taste of success and we think we've got a really great tennis star and then they tantalise us for all eternity, like Andy Murray.
We're going to be fine. No, we're going to be fine. I mean, let's face it. I mean, she won the US Open.
I know.
This is the biggest title. I mean, this is a Grand Slam title. She's 19 years old. She's a fantastic tennis player. It's not going to be just, is this wood that I can actually touch at the same time? OK, fine. So the thing is, it's going to take time. So she's 19 years old. She's won the US Open. She's had a little tricky time of late. She will be back. She's a fantastic tennis player. She will be fine. Absolutely.
What of Andy Murray, though?
Now, that's a different kettle of fish altogether, isn't it? So we're probably at the other end of the career. I don't know. If you've seen the documentary, did you see that, Eamonn, as well? That documentary about him, it just shows the work that this guy's done.
I haven't seen this documentary.
Oh, it's
Where
incredible.
will I find it?
I think it's on Amazon Prime, and it was a special documentary that was made about him, about his injury, and then about the operation he had on his hip. And you just see the lengths that this guy goes to get back to playing professional tennis. And it's just mind-boggling. The work, you think it's a very glamorous sport, but the amount of work that he's done on his own. So anyway, he's gone through. Of course, we know all the trials and tribulations he's had playing in Australia. Just hasn't worked out. He wasn't happy. He just didn't seem at it for me yesterday. He just didn't really seem at it like he normally would.
He's getting older, though, as well. And when he
51 years old now.
And he's an artificial
What is he,
hip.
36 or something?
Yeah.
But, but anyway, well done to both of them. And it's a pity they didn't get further. So the dream of a GB bobsleigh team.
This is the big one. This is the big one I was talking about. Greg Rutherford, we mentioned him last week, didn't we? Whereas Greg Rutherford wanted to be the first British athlete to win an Olympic medal at both the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics, but unfortunately not going to happen. They needed 3 top 12 finishes, so he's not qualified. But there is another athlete. Now, this is Montel Douglas. Now, Montel Douglas, she was a fantastic 100-metre runner and, interestingly, ran in Beijing in the Summer Olympics. Didn't get a medal, but she now moved to bobsleigh. She was in I think she was in the reserve side for the Winter Olympics last time and is now qualified because it seems there's a lot of sprinters. There's another sprinter, Lauren Williams, who was a gold medalist for America. She's in it. So what they're actually all doing now, they're packing their bobs, if that's actually a phrase, with top athletes because they know that raw power, how important that is. So Greg's out, but Montel's in. We do have a great chance, though, of actually winning something in the bobsleigh. Well, they've done it without funding, but they've been amazing. So.
And as you say, an interesting science, the way to look at that, pack it with top athletes.
Absolutely.
Paul, thank you. Appreciate that. We've got to go to the break. We say goodbye to you, maybe see you later on. And hopefully we'll say hello to you again right after the break because we're going to be going through the newspapers after this.
Pork medallions tonight, and Dad's trying something new. Sticky pork noodles. Or maybe Caribbean pork. Now we're talking. Easy peasy lime squeezy. Who's the daddy? Mix up midweek with pork.
The Sky Broadband January sale is here. Start the new year with a bang and get our January Fibre special for just £25 a month. It comes with super fast speeds and our outstanding service too. So brace yourself for our incredible Sky Broadband January Fibre special with super fast speeds and outstanding service for the amazing value of just £25 a month for 18 months. New and existing customers, don't miss out. It won't last long. Go to sky.com today.
Key is here to answer all your questions on equity release. Which plan, for instance, is right for you? Key has a wide range of plans to suit different needs, and with competitive rates and options such as inheritance protection for your loved ones, we're sure to find the plan that's right for you. So why not see how much cash you could release with our free online calculator? Key, equity release that's right for you.
Hello, Sky. Play Sky Sports F1. Hello, Sky! Volume up!
streaming TV from Sky, with 6 powerful speakers built in for Dolby Atmos sound.
We're going to give you the temperature of the newspapers now, and we're doing that in the company of Giles Kenningham, who's the former press chief to David Cameron, and Liz Kershaw, who is a legend of a broadcaster, basically. How would I describe you? That's about it. That's about it summed up. Modesty prevents you, I know. Liz, first of all, we're going to look. You've gone to The Sun. This is page 10 in The Sun.
Yeah.
Ex-Deputy Prime Minister Michael Heseltine, he's got a view on Boris, amongst other things. And what is that?
He says, get rid of Boris and we can get rid of we can reverse Brexit. So this man has been banging on about this. He's never accepted the democratic decision of 2016 by the British electorate, and he's been angling to do anything to reverse that decision. He's now seeing this as an opportunity. Absolutely no respect for democracy. Whether you're a Remainer or a Brexiteer, I would hope you respected the decision of a referendum. But he just cannot accept it.
But he mightn't be on his own, Liz, and I just would be interested from Giles's point of view there. Would there be more like him who would see the demise of Boris Johnson as a way, in some way, I don't know how they would do it, to revive links with the European Union?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that ship has sailed, and there was a clear mandate from the public in the 2019 election that people wanted.
So you'd say
Brexit
to Heseltine, dream on.
Yeah, move on. We've got to get on with it and accept it.
He's got his arboretum near me in Northamptonshire. I'm a neighbour
The last
of his.
thing this country needs is another referendum.
No,
So
but
the other big political headache coming down the line is the union. Once you get through all of this, but I mean, more chaos.
Everybody forgets about that.
That's bubbling away underneath the surface.
Yeah.
So where do you see the rifts there? Because actually, whatever happens between Scotland and England, I think affects Northern Ireland.
As well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I think it's problematic. You've now got a situation where Scottish Tories are saying to Boris, you're not welcome here.
Yeah.
So whoever takes over, this needs to be addressed. You've got a problem now where Labour haven't really got a foothold in Scotland, Tories are quite limited, and I think there actually needs to be probably a separate campaign group, pro-union, to be set up to hold the SNP to account. Nicola Sturgeon, arguably the smartest, slickest politician in the UK. I don't agree with her, but very, very good operator. And
But you would respect her. You do see her as very competent.
I totally respect her as a politician. I don't agree with her. But yeah, very, very smooth, great media performer. And she'll be looking at this and problems with Brexit and being able to leverage them. So, it's all about, for her, it's timing, isn't it? Because once it happens, if it's not successful, she'll have to go. But
So what I'm saying is, Heseltine, however impossible it may be, he agitates the situation, and more people will begin to talk on his side.
He's never given up, so he's still at it. But I realise the problems with having left the EU.
Yeah.
For instance, the Northern Irish border in the middle of the Irish Sea. I mean, it's created terrible problems for your home patch, and it's created problems with people I know in bands, etc., trying to travel around Europe, and having to cross borders. It's really complicated and costly to people in that respect. But whatever your view on it, it was democratically determined, and it's just we're talking earlier. I just find it another example of people in the Westminster bubble having absolutely no respect for your man in the street.
OK, you're going to the financial pages in the Mail now, Giles, and this is, the government is saying, right, OK, everybody, we're going to relax things on the COVID front, now get back into work. The unions have an issue with that one.
yeah, so Boris has said that Whitehall should lead by example, so he wants to get all the civil service back. The PCS union, which represents civil service, is saying there shouldn't be a headlong rush to get people back to work. And, I suppose, contrary to that, you've got business leaders and the high street saying we need people back to work. If the high streets and town centres are going to be revived, we need it for the economy as well. So, Boris is sort of gearing up, it seems, for a big fight with unions. Apparently, lots of Whitehall kicking back, and they can't give a timetable to when all the civil servants will get back in there. Personally, I can't wait to get back to work full time. I'm fed up doing Zoom calls. And I think everything just functions a lot better. And certainly from a sociability point of view as well, I think people like it. So.
Well, I've really enjoyed coming in here today because
Yes.
I've been absolutely fed up sitting at my breakfast bar with a laptop for going on 2 years. Well, I did go in throughout lockdown once a week in my own car with
But
a
what you're
mask.
saying is you need that interaction.
You meet
that
people.
purpose. I think a lot of us are defined by what we do. And if you're at home, you're doing the same job, but you're at home.
Yeah.
You sort of need to be visible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, today, it's lovely to see you again.
Thank you.
And Isabel. But I've met Giles. We've found out,
Yes.
we've got a lot in common. I've just met Andrew Bridgen. And we had a good chat. These are people I would never have interacted with from my kitchen. It's just a joy.
Exactly. All the best ideas, I think, happen from those spontaneous conversations by the coffee machine.
Yeah,
and things are a lot quicker when you're just face to face, as opposed to having to pick up the phone or go on a Zoom call.
On the other hand, I didn't enjoy the trip in, which I've avoided, for 2 years.
That's the thing, isn't
So,
it?
as you were saying earlier, you spend 3 hours travelling in and out.
I find now that when I get up in the morning, whether there's so many ways to communicate, by text, by WhatsApp, by Facebook, by Instagram, by email, whatever, it's just dawn to dusk. I actually would prefer to go into an office and then at 6 o'clock or whatever say,
Cut
that's
off.
it,
Yeah,
thank you, good night, I'm going home now to watch TV or whatever.
Well, we were just saying, I don't have Twitter on my phone because literally I could spend all day going on it. But also, WhatsApp will be the death of people because literally it now means that people know if you're on, if you're available. Like you say, you can never turn your phone off. Things are being done now more by WhatsApp than by email, and people expect an immediate response all the time. To your point, I think it's unsustainable to be doing that 16, 18 hours a day.
And hugs. I've had 2 hugs today. It sounds, maybe you think I'm creepy, but I really enjoyed those hugs.
But then we get to this whole stage. I must admit, actually, Giles came in here and he offered me his hand, or I offered him mine. But then I give him a fist pump and he was looking for a handshake. It is actually socially embarrassing sometimes, isn't it, now, what we actually do and how we do it. So we go to the Telegraph, Liz, and we're talking about mandatory face coverings. Maybe on the way out, but not everybody. People have now got used to them, so they're just. What I'm trying to say is, what is the new decorum on all these things?
Well, goodness knows, because even politicians can't decide. I think from next week, the regulations are face masks are no longer mandatory in indoor situations. However, we've got Sadiq Khan in London saying you'll still have to wear them on public transport, and we've got Sajid Javid saying I'm still going to wear mine indoors, and this is sending out different signals. I've got friends saying to me, I will keep wearing a mask because it protects me and others. I think for some people it's like a comfort blanket as well. Yeah. And then I was really shocked last night because I'm leaving the house because I stayed in London, and as I'm running out, don't forget your masks, so stuffed 2 masks into my bag. Walked into this hotel and the lobby was packed. People socialising and checking in and moving about. Not one person. The staff behind the desk were wearing masks. Not one person was wearing a mask except me. I felt a bit to be honest. So what is the etiquette? What's the protocol? I think I'd still wear one on a train, but that's because I don't really understand whether it's helping me or others not. And then in Scotland, you do have to wear masks still, I believe.
Then if you're drinking on the train, people take it off.
I
mean, then someone coughs and splutters.
But I believe you still have to, I believe this, correct me, because who knows the rules, from next week, if you go to a gig indoors, you'll still have to wear a mask in England, and you certainly do in Scotland. And the other thing is, the government has said no COVID passes to go into an indoor event from next week. But I had an email yesterday from a band who I've got tickets for on tour, and it said, these are all the venues, please read the guidelines. And all of those venues, like O2 places, etc., are saying you need your COVID pass on your phone when you come. So private companies are making their own rules. I just don't wonder why people are confused.
Confused you will be. Hopefully not too confused. Giles and Liz will be back in an hour's time, and hopefully you will be too. If not, spread the word elsewhere. We're talking about a balance between work and a home life. Isabel, now with more on that.
Yes, it's our big debate this morning, Eamonn. Many people saying they could quit their jobs for an improved work-life balance. That's according to new research. A study is highlighting that 1 in 4 people, so a quarter, are dreaming of resigning by just not showing up to work. So is it all fantasy or could it happen? Let's speak to Natalie Alexander. She's Director of Alexander Hancock Recruitment. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
But is this going to happen, or have we all turned a bit lazy after we've got used to having gin and tonics at 5 o'clock during lockdown?
Well, I think working from home was a necessity through COVID. But I think, like your guest was saying, the ramifications of working from home are not really being considered by people. I mean, I know for a fact, I had a conversation last night before I left work with one of my clients who said that 2 people who were resigning from her business because they had bought puppies through lockdown and they weren't prepared to pay the cost for doggy daycare. So they were leaving because they wanted a job that was working from home. Now, working from home before was a necessity. I think now it's becoming a benefit. It's for the companies to decide whether or not they wish to offer working from home. And I think that's how employees need to be thinking about it. It's not a right. And if their right is to decide whether or not they want to work for a company, but it's an employer's right to decide whether or not that actually works for them. And, we're extremely busy. Some companies are offering hybrid roles, but as a benefit, not as a right.
And I suppose the question is whether or not we want to see our nation going down the street that perhaps France has gone down, where people clock off, once they finish, they won't take any work emails outside of their working day. They won't take work calls at weekends. We spoke to somebody an hour ago from Manchester University who said productivity's improved when people are getting a better work-life balance. But I'd imagine that's probably per hour, but you can't compete with someone who's doing a 60-hour week, can you?
Well, there are 2 things here. First of all, the trouble with working from home is you actually don't clock off. And in terms of productivity, well, I'm not actually convinced about that, really. Working from home is definitely easier. You can pop off and you can do your Sainsbury's order, or you can load your dishwasher or whatever between meetings. But I'm not convinced that you're actually doing your job 100%, because if you're being paid to work from 9 till 5, you should be on that Zoom camera 9 till 5. Well, and then there are all the issues with the sociability that they were mentioning before. Work isn't just about work. It's about everything else. It's about meeting people, about engaging with people. And, you're not 100% on the ball when you're in the office, when you're having a coffee or a bit of a chat around the water cooler. But you're in work and your manager can see you in work and can see what you're doing. So I'm really not convinced about it at all. I think it's actually very, very, very bad, particularly for the young people, in terms of their mental health and what they're actually missing out on by going into work.
Interesting. Natalie Alexander, the jury is out very much for you. It's a debate we're going to continue throughout the show this morning. Thank you very much for your time.
From today, sports fans in Wales will be able to return to stadiums and arenas for the first time since Boxing Day. This is the second step in the Welsh Government's plan to take Wales back to alert level 0. Let's now go to our Welsh reporter, Lily Hewitson, who will tell us more. Good morning, Lily.
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. It's a huge day for sports fans here in Wales. Of course, from today, the Welsh Government have scrapped that rule which banned fans from attending sports games across the country, which, of course, saw so many crowdless, particularly over the Christmas period. Now, rugby fans in particular will be celebrating today, as the decision means the Six Nations can go ahead as planned. It means the Principality Stadium here behind me will be full of fans from next month. Also, from today, it means that the rule of 6 will be scrapped in restaurants and pubs across the country here in Wales, which will be welcome news, particularly for those in the vicinity around the Principality Stadium. But on to other sports. I had a chat to the Swansea City Supporters Trust about what it'll be like for fans to return to football games.
Yeah, the overriding reaction was disappointment. We'd had 12, 18 months without being able to go and see football. We've had a nice, sweet taste of it back. And particularly with Swansea, we were playing some excellent football, had some decent results, things were on the up, and then all of a sudden it's taken away from us again. So it was a bit of a hard reaction to get used to. But then our overriding thought was our members. We know that some members struggle at this time of year, particularly those who are alone, and getting to games of football is quite important for the sake of their own sort of mental health and well-being. On our own trust website, we did put links to a few charities like Mind and Talk Club, who do some excellent work with people. But overriding, the feeling was just disappointment that we'd got used to going to games and it was being taken away from us again. It's just a special place, a football stadium. I've sat in the same seat for the last 15 years. I've got 7 or 8 guys who sit around me, and I don't know their names or what their jobs are. But when Swansea score, we all hug. And football provides that release. So, yeah, we can't wait to get back in.
Hockey is actually a huge sport here in South Wales. Going to those games, it really is a complete sensory overload of loud music, chanting and lights. So I had a chat to the Cardiff Devils ice hockey coach about what it's been like playing behind closed doors.
The 10 teams in our league are based on 4 different nations. So we're actually playing away games in front of fans, including some of our own fans who are travelling. And then we're coming home and playing in front of the empty stadiums. And it's what we've noticed is that the start of games have been quite flat, where the teams are looking to get into it. But you know, then eventually the game takes over, your emotions take over. But you know, we definitely miss having the fans in the building. As the way that things have played out, you know, it looks like that, you know, having the fans in the building is hopefully here for the rest of the season. You know, we finish up in April and we hope that we can put this behind us, but we never know with this thing. You know, it's changed from time to time. It would be a serious setback if once again we had to take the fans out, you know, for both ourselves as a business, but, you know, more as an entertainment provider. You know, our fans are everything to us, and we'd love them to be here.
So today is the second step in Drakeford's plan to take Wales back to alert level 0. Next Friday, it'll be step 3, where we'll see the reopening of nightclubs across Wales. But for now, back to you.
If anyone knows how to pack a stadium, it's the Welsh. It's the singing. It brings me to tears every time. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no better stadium to watch the rugby than in Cardiff. The atmosphere is electric. Good to see you, Lily. We'll see you later in the show. Now, on to another very disturbing story this morning. The FBI is treating the attack on a Texas synagogue on Saturday as an act of terrorism targeting the Jewish community. 2 more people have been arrested in the UK as part of that investigation after a British gunman held 4 people hostage. Here's a clip of the last phone call that he made to his brother, which was leaked to the Jewish Chronicle.
Why are you doing that, man? Why are you doing that for? You know, what's wrong with you? Why are you coming
but I need to do that.
You know, you don't need to do this. Whatever you're doing, man, just pack it in, you know. You'll get a bit of time and you'll come out.
Yeah.
Money's come back to Black. Do you know what I mean? He's come back last week. Do you know what I mean? He done his time. Whatever you're doing, man, think about your kids, man. Think about these guys are innocent. You know? These guys you've got there, they're innocent people, man.
Well, our national reporter, Paul Hawkins, is in Manchester for us this morning. We'll be talking to him a little bit later in the programme about those 2 latest arrests, one in Birmingham, one in Manchester. But for now, we're going to take another look at your front pages. Here's The Guardian. It's reporting that Tory whips have been using dirty tactics to intimidate Conservative Party MPs. The lowest of the low, says the Daily Mirror. It reports the MP who defected to Labour was told a new school would be scrapped in his constituency if he voted for free school meals. That was Christian Wakeford. Here's the Times newspaper. Their lead is on the story about Tory rebels threatening to retaliate in a row over alleged blackmails, claiming that they have recordings of the whips using intimidation. Civil war is the Eye's prediction. They say Boris Johnson's position looks increasingly precarious within the Conservative Party. The Financial Times this morning also pointing towards what they say Biden, who says he's hardened his warning to Russia following suggestions of a minor Russian incursion to avoid severe sanctions. Make what sense of that you can. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky refuted the US president, saying no attack on Ukraine's sovereignty is minor. We've also got reports overnight of Liz Truss, who gave a keynote speech on this from Australia, saying that this would lead to a quagmire and the loss of life. Tory rebels are saying they're being hounded, according to The Independent today. The paper's other story, of course, mentioning the UK and US warning that Putin needs to step back from the brink of war with the Ukraine. Daily Mail is warning unions are at war with the Prime Minister over the sudden ending of Plan B restrictions. The Express claims the Chancellor's considering giving millions of Brits £500 to help them with their energy bills. So that is the papers this morning. We're going to take a little look now at our GB views. Lots of you have been getting in touch on our story this morning about work-life balance. There are calls to perhaps reduce the working week down to 4 days, with 1 in 4 people saying they are thinking about quitting their jobs. Tim says, we've just been told to start going back to working in the office. However, many of us are unhappy about this and want to carry on working from home, which has proved to be very successful. Less absentees through sickness, more productive, and none of the hassle of commuting. Yet our wishes are ignored. What can we do? Christine says civil servants working from home does not always work. You only need to ask those waiting for passports, driving licence and tax matters, etc. to be sorted. Some things relying on access to personal information cannot be done at home. Keep your thoughts coming in. I have to say, so far, taking a look at your views, there's a sort of split down the middle on that one. OK, stay with us here on Breakfast. In the next hour, we're in the East Midlands to get your views. But first of all, here's your Friday forecast.
Good morning. It's a cold start out there, certainly across the southern half of the country, one of the coldest of the winter so far, with a widespread frost. Many eastern areas will stay sunny today. In the west, more cloud than yesterday, but most places dry thanks to this chunky area of high pressure that will stick with us through the weekend. So again, the weekend staying dry for the vast majority. But that high pressure and the clear skies overnight have led to a fairly hard frost. That frost, though, steadily melting away as the sun gets to work this morning. Cloudier today for Wales, northwest England compared to yesterday, and fairly cloudy for western Scotland, Northern Ireland. A bit breezy in the far northwest. A bit of drizzly rain is likely here, but elsewhere it's dry. Sunny spells across eastern Scotland, down the eastern side of England. Probably feeling a bit warmer here compared to yesterday. The winds will be lighter. Top temperatures maybe in the northwest, 9 or 10 Celsius. Generally temperatures close to average for the time of year. Through this evening, the cloud will slip a little further south, so that means it won't be as frosty tonight, but still we've got the clear skies across eastern England, so here some pockets of frost are possible, and we'll see a bit more patchy rain across the far northwest. But generally, it will be a warmer night tonight compared to last night. Still not particularly warm, though, through the weekend, staying fairly cloudy, and that will make it feel quite cold for most. A little rain on Saturday across the Highlands and the Western Isles, generally in brighter skies across eastern Scotland and eastern parts of England. We'll see some sunny spells. Even further west, it may brighten up at times, but generally fairly grey through Saturday, and temperatures without the sunshine just struggling a little bit, certainly across the south, 6 or 7 Celsius. Again, the top temperatures probably in the northwest, where it will be breezy. There's the high hanging on across the south. Weather fronts approaching the north. There will be some patchy rain in the northwest, but the weekend promises dry conditions for most, certainly across the south, light winds, a lot of cloud, some places seeing a bit of sunshine.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Very good morning to you. It's just gone 8 o'clock. It is a Friday morning. It is the 21st of January. We are breakfast on GB News. Eamonn and Isabel here.
We are live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and on your radio. Wherever you are, don't forget you can take us with you on YouTube and on our GB News app. Coming up this morning.
We're just hearing that the singer, the rock star Meat Loaf, has died. Most famous, of course, for Bat Out of Hell, the album and the song, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. He was 74 years of age, Grammy Award winner as well. And what a character. I mean, I have met him, and I mean, big, powerful presence there. Quite scary, actually.
Yeah,
as well.
he sort of encaptured a sort of genre, didn't he, of the sort of 80s. He was larger than life off screen as well as on screen. And he had a real talent, you know, none of the sort of generation pop where people use synthesizers. His voice was really distinctive.
Well, he had got health problems throughout the years, but cause of death at the moment not being released. So 74 years of age, real name Michael Lee Adele. So the sad demise of the rock star Meat Loaf. This morning we're going to be talking about blackmail plots, secret recordings and intimidation, which seems to be engulfing the Conservative Party. The Prime Minister says he's seen no evidence of such tactics. We'll get the latest from our political correspondent Tom Harwood.
It's good news for football lovers in Wales. From today, fans will be able to return to stadiums and arenas for the first time since restrictions were tightened on Boxing Day.
Plus, we'll be live on your doorstep, maybe not your doorstep, but Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. Our reporter Will Hollis out and about to find out what you think about the important issues of the day and what is mattering to you most of all. So remember, your views, your news here on GB News. You can join in any of the discussions by emailing us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News.
Well, our top story this hour, and Boris Johnson says he's seen no evidence to support the claims that his Conservative MPs have been calling for him to resign, are being intimidated and blackmailed. It's the latest twist in what's been a turbulent political week for the Prime Minister following letters of no confidence in the defection of one Tory MP to Labour.
Downing Street is said to be concerned about findings of Sue Gray's Partygate report. Our political correspondent Tom Harwood here for all of this. The Sue Gray, her report, I'm fed up saying this. When? Any indication? Is there a time scale on it?
So whenever we ask this question of number 10,
Yeah.
they rightly point out that this is an independent report of which politicians have no control over. We know that this week Sue Gray has spoken to a number of more people than she was expecting to speak to at the start of this process. We've seen that some parties got revealed in the press earlier this week as well. That seems to have delayed the process slightly. We know that Dominic Cummings is now being spoken to as well. The rough guidelines that we've been given is potentially next week, but truth be told, only Sue Gray knows when her work will be done. The one guideline that we have, and the reason we thought from the middle of this week it won't be this week, is that the Prime Minister has said he will respond to that report at length in Parliament. So it will have to be a sitting day in Parliament when there's enough time for the Prime Minister to come to the Commons and respond to what's said.
Is distance between, this report being published, does this augur well for Boris Johnson from the point of view that tensions may have calmed somewhat around him?
I think it's really hard to say. We've seen what a rollercoaster the last few days have been. I mean, if we were to have this conversation on Monday, I'd have said that things were looking a bit better for Boris Johnson. By Tuesday evening, it was looking like things were going south very, very quickly. And then by Wednesday, the party seemed to be rallying around him again. And then Thursday, we had this extraordinary statement from Select Committee Chair William Ragg alleging blackmail from whips. So it's been an absolute roller, almost on every different day. It's as if Boris Johnson's fortunes have risen and fallen again. It's very hard to predict.
We want to get into this whole subject of whips because this is what's dominating the front pages of the papers. And I think a lot of people may not have ever actually thought, what is a whip, or when do they come into effect?
Yeah, and of course, whips are there to try and bring party discipline. It's not a new concept, but it was interesting hearing Andrew Bridgen earlier on the programme with us saying, look, he'd been involved in votes of no confidence in David Cameron and also in Theresa May, but he'd never known whipping in this kind of era, not just the chaos, but he talked about the intimidation and many describe it as bullying. But we're now seeing the fight back. Those who have been on the receiving end, been quoted in the Times this morning, are saying that they're going to go public with recordings of some of this.
That's right. Allegedly, one MP has recorded a conversation with a whip, a private conversation with a whip, and others, of course, have the records of various WhatsApp communications, various text messages that they may well make public. However, for the most part, it seems that a lot of these conversations are usually done sort of behind closed doors, not recorded conversations between whips and members of parliament. So it's just this one recording that potentially may see the light of day. That's what the rebel camp seems to be saying, although I think it is worth putting some context around this. We've seen television programmes like House of Cards. We sort of understand a little bit how the whipping system works and has worked for decades. And I don't think anything that's being alleged now is worse than what we heard about in the 1970s and the 1980s, where MPs were physically dragged from hospitals to go and line division lobbies. Some MPs alleged to have been ploughed with alcohol, so they'll do the bidding of the whips, and indeed a little black book being kept by various chief whips of various indiscretions of MPs, being held over MPs in order that they do the bidding of the government. All of these tactics have been long-standing and none of them are very pretty, but I'm afraid that has been the reality of politics in this country and indeed in other countries too for a very long time.
OK, thanks very much, Tom.
You're also just waking up to the sad news that the entertainer, the rock star Meat Loaf, has died. Apparently this was Thursday night. No cause of death is being released. But in a statement, the family said, "We know how much he meant to so many of you. We truly appreciate all the love and support as we move through this time of grief and losing such an inspiring artist and beautiful man and an icon, an absolute icon, both his physical presence and his voice."
Yeah, he was said to be with his wife, Deborah, when he passed away. His daughters, Pearl and Amanda, and close friends were with him during his last 24 hours. They paid tribute to his amazing career, which, of course, spanned 6 decades, saw him selling over 100 million albums worldwide and starring in over 65 movies, but perhaps best known for his hit, Bat Out of Hell. We'll have full coverage of that breaking news this morning.
I would do anything for you.
Oh, that was an absolute
but I won't
brilliant
do that.
Yeah, I love it.
Did you ever work out what that was?
No, I know. What was that?
What was
but
that?
But his voice, he really could pelt it out, couldn't he?
But he wouldn't do it.
He made me laugh.
Whatever it was, he wouldn't do it.
But I won't do that.
8 minutes past the hour. Very good morning to you on this Friday morning. The FBI is treating the attack that happened last weekend in Texas on a synagogue as an act of terrorism targeting the Jewish community.
Yeah, 2 more people have been arrested in the UK as part of the investigation after a British gunman held 4 people hostage. Joining us now is our national reporter, Paul Hawkins. He's live in the city centre of Manchester for us this morning. So this investigation seems to be fast-moving then, Paul. We had 2 teenagers arrested on Sunday night and released without charge, and now 2 further arrests. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, 2 further arrests yesterday, one in Birmingham and one in Manchester, Isabel. This is Malik Faisal Akram, who took those 4 worshippers hostage in a synagogue in Texas on Saturday. The standoff lasted for around about 10 hours. This was in Colleyville in Texas, in the Congregation Beth Israel synagogue. Now, he entered the synagogue pretending to be homeless. He pulled out a gun and then proceeded to keep those 4 people hostage, sparking that long standoff with the authorities. They managed to free him, and in fact, a phone call was released yesterday of a phone call that he made in the final few hours that he was inside the synagogue, where he called his family back in Blackburn. His brother tried to talk him out of it, tried to convince him that this wasn't the way forward, tried to get him to think about his children, but he didn't listen to them. And then a few moments later, the FBI entered the synagogue and shot him dead. Very odd that the FBI was saying this was nothing to do with anti-Semitism. Now, as you say, rode back on that, and they're saying that this was an incident targeted at the Jewish community. His family have said that he has mental health problems. So there's a lot to take in there. I've been speaking to the chief executive of the British Muslim Heritage Centre, Maksud Ahmed.
Understand that he had mental health illness, so he also had a criminal record. So he's well known to the establishment, the police service and I think also the MI5 and so forth from that side of it. So the community is asking questions. How did somebody with this type of condition of mental health and criminal record can travel so easily to Texas and also purchase a gun? And I think there are some questions and some learning lessons for United States and for ourselves to learn really from.
Yeah. Do you think his issues made him more vulnerable to extremism?
I think people who's got mental health issues are. I think people who are actually misinformed about their own faith are also vulnerable. And that's why it's very important that people learn about Islam, the true Islam, what Islam is and what it preaches, and not be sort of led by individuals who could actually influence individuals like Mr. Akram. There is no justification for holding up innocent people in a synagogue, a place where people go for peace and a place where they go for worship, a place where they should feel safe, whether it's a synagogue or a mosque or a temple or a gurdwara. It's just absolutely shocking that this has happened, really.
There will be people watching this who will say, yeah, right, Islam's a religion of peace. Yeah, of course. Yeah, why does this keep happening then? What would you say to them?
I think they are wrong, personally, and I think I am a Muslim. If I behaved like that, and if every Muslim behaved like that, then there would be lots more incidents happening all the time, in a sense, on it. Islam is a religion of peace, in a sense, with regards to what you said. I think Islam is very misunderstood by lots of people. It takes certain...
Including some Muslims?
Including some Muslims who are actually misinformed. If the Muslim community remains silent when something happens to the Jewish community in Manchester or internationally, then we're doing ourselves injustice, because tomorrow it could be us. And if the Jewish community is remaining silent when things happen to the Muslim community, then they're also doing injustice, because things will happen to them. Yeah. Same with the Sikh and same with the Hindu community. So good people have to speak out. Remaining silent is not an option. If you remain silent, in my opinion, then you are taking the side of the perpetrators.
So that is Maksud Ahmed, the Chief Executive of the British Muslim Heritage Centre. Just one other thing to add. MI5, 18 months ago, they were watching Akram. They were watching him for about 4 weeks, but they deemed him not a threat to national security. In his final phone call to his brother, he said that he'd been thinking about doing this for 2 years. So clearly, somehow, he'd managed to hide this from the authorities, and that will be a line of investigation, surely, for the FBI.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Here at GB News, not only are we in Manchester, we're getting out and about and around the country, as close to you as possible, to see what you think about the stories of the day. The sad news today just coming that Meat Loaf, Marvin Lee Adele was his real name, has died, and lots and lots of tributes being paid to him. And I think, things like his album, his iconic album, Bat Out of Hell, and the cover of that has been just so much part of people's lives, their soundtrack of their lives as they grew up, and that's why it means so much to so many people.
Yeah, and he was such an era, wasn't he? The rocking era, and he really could hit all the high notes and whacked out a tune and had such a big personality. It's a huge loss. I wonder if Will will get some reaction on the doorsteps of Eastwood in Nottinghamshire to that this morning, as well as the other big stories of the day. Over to you, Will.
Good morning. Yes, Eamonn, you said in the last hour, you said, Will, doorsteps is about getting on to the homes of people living in Eastwood. It's not just about going down to your local pub and trying to get a free pint. Well, I heard your critique. I heard your review of my last live hit, and I thought, you know what, I'd get out into Eastwood live on GB News, on TV and on radio, and see if I could meet some people on their doorstep. And it is a bit lighter now, but I could see that there was one light on in the close distance here at Church Street. So Eastwood, it's just on the border of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire, really close to junction 26 and 27 of the M1. Now it looks like somebody is in here, so we might get really lucky and we might have a bit of a chance to speak to somebody this morning on GB News, television and on radio. Let's see who might be behind this door today, if somebody is there. Hi, sir, I saw that you had a light on. We're live on GB News, on TV and on radio. Yeah. It's a bit cold out here. Is there any chance that I can sneak in and is that all right? Lovely. I'm just going to step in here. Just watch your feet there, my friend. Lovely. Now I'm Will. I'm the East Midlands reporter at GB News. What was your name, sorry?
Peter Matkin.
Peter. Today on GB News, we're talking about work-life balance. What is it that you do for a living? Are you working at the moment?
No, I'm retired. Oh. I used to be a sub-postmaster, and I've been retired nearly 25 years.
Retired life. Is it all just sitting around watching GB News on the TV, going to the pub?
No, we go to the pub, we go for a good walk every morning and try and keep fit.
And what about in your life when you were working 20 years ago and as much as what maybe 50 years ago when you started working? What was work-life balance then? Was there such a thing as personal time, social time, or was it all about earning your cash?
Oh no, there was plenty of social time, you know, pubs and everything. Yeah, we enjoyed ourselves just the same, but you couldn't change jobs. If you left your job, you wanted another job to start in straight away, you know, because you needed the money.
One of the statistics that we're hearing about today is that it's around 1 in 4 people would like to just walk away. They dream of getting out of that work environment and leaving their job completely. Was that something that you could do in your life when you started working?
We dreamed of it, but we couldn't do it, unfortunately. You know, the money wasn't good. The money wasn't good when we first started work. I mean, we're talking about 50 years ago. A little bit more perhaps, you know, so yeah. Now people have got it a lot easier, you know. If they want extra furniture in the house or anything, they can afford it on HP, and we had to pay cash, you know. That was it. You saved up and you paid.
And one of the things that we've learned from the pandemic is people can work from home on a computer. They don't necessarily have to even go into the office. What was it like in your day in terms of maybe the job that you did as a postmaster, but also the jobs that your friends and family did?
Well, obviously there were no computers. A computer, if you could get one, would have been as big as this room virtually. It's hard to say, really.
It was a lot of mining jobs, obviously.
Oh, yes.
Round here in Eastwood, it was a colliery. Obviously, that was closed down when they were closing all of the collieries down back in the 80s and the 90s. Were a lot of your friends from that sort of a background, manual labour, hard jobs?
Yes, they were. Builders, labourers, working in the mines, etc., you know, and it was a hard life for them. But I think most of them enjoyed it. And they certainly enjoyed going to the pub at night and having a couple of pints after they'd been working in the pits. You know, all the pit pubs were very, very busy, very busy. You know, really fantastic trade they did.
Yeah, we've been around one pub this morning. What we are hearing about today on GB News is the news that Meat Loaf, the singer, the rock legend, has unfortunately passed away. Is that somebody that you listen to in your lifetime?
Yeah, he seems to have been around as long as I do. So that's another one bites the dust. You know, it's bad when the people that you looked up to as stars start passing away. You know, you think, oh God, where's the next one's coming from?
I do imagine that's a tricky thing to watch, maybe as somebody that is probably a similar age to Meat Loaf, to watch your pop icons, your rock icons, the cultural and social factors that you've lived with start to maybe drift away.
Yes, it is. It's very difficult. It brings forward your mortality, doesn't it? It makes you realise that you're not immortal any longer. When you're young, you think life goes on forever. You know, somebody of 70, will never get to 70. But then you get into your 70s and you think, I want to keep going a bit longer.
Still got a few more years in the tank?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm hoping so anyway. I've got the wife, she looks after me and makes me get out walking and, so I'm keeping as fit as possible.
I think that's the thing. It's, I suppose, a positive mental attitude, but also keeping the body ticking, keeping it going and getting out. And I imagine socialising is a big part of staying fit and healthy.
It is.
When you're older. And during lockdowns, during the time when maybe you couldn't see your friends and your family, how important was that?
It was very important. We made sure we went out for walks every day. I shouldn't say this, but we went out twice a day and you was only supposed to go once. So I'm probably as bad as Boris Johnson, really.
Well, it's nice to be actually out and about today here in Eastwood, and it's nice to have been welcomed into your kitchen on your doorstep. This one has been certainly one of my favourite ones to come in so far. I promised you a doorstep, Eamonn, and I've actually got you a kitchen, so that's a 10 out of 10 marks, I think.
I tell you, 11 out of 10. Well, 11 out of 10. And Pete was brilliant, and the fact that he was talking about Meat Loaf there, and that's what it means to people. It means, where I met my girlfriend, or, the first album I bought, or did I go and see his concert, or whatever it happens to be, and musical memories and the passing of someone like Meat Loaf. It just resonates with everyone, whether you were into his music or not, Will. I mean, even you, Will, a baby like you would know who Meat Loaf was, wouldn't you?
Of course, yeah. Bat Out of Hell.
Yeah. Do you know, he would do anything for love, but he wouldn't do that. Do you know what that was? We're trying to find out what that was.
Yeah, I think so. That was off the top of my head, you've really put me on the spot there. But what I will say is I did buy tickets for the Meat Loaf Steve Steinman at Nottingham Arena, and unfortunately for me and my mum to go, and unfortunately she couldn't go just because of all the lockdowns. It kept pushing it back further and further.
Oh, so your mum's a big fan of Meat Loaf?
My mum is a massive fan, so I'm sure she'll be waking up to some of the news this morning with a little bit of a pain in her chest.
I've ever ate Meat Loaf.
I have.
Have you?
Yeah, I love Meat Loaf.
Is it an American dish or is it?
We're being told yes, but I don't know. It's like a sausage in a kind of like pastry crust.
So like a big sausage.
Yeah, but I'm thinking my nana called it something else, and I can't think what. But it was a bit like meat. We used to have it at school as well, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, thanks, and will you thank Pete? He's got a lovely kitchen there, and would you thank him for letting us in there? So thanks very much indeed. Lovely from Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. Let's bring you up to date with that breaking news. The American singer Meat Loaf, whose hits included "Bat Out of Hell" and "I'd Do Anything for Love." He's died at the age of 74.
Yeah, his career spanned 6 decades. It saw him sell over 100 million albums, and he starred in 65 movies, including Rocky Horror Picture Show and Wayne's World. Of course, Bat Out of Hell was one of the biggest selling records in history.
The Foreign Secretary has warned Russia's president to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake. Speaking in Australia, Liz Truss said an invasion would lead to a terrible quagmire and loss of life.
They claim they want stability while they work to threaten and destabilise others. We know what lies down that path and the terrible toll in lives lost and human suffering it brings. That's why we urge President Putin to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake.
And in Showbiz this morning, Adele has postponed the start of her Las Vegas residency, which was due to open today because the show isn't ready. In an emotional social media post, she said her production team had tried absolutely everything to pull it together in time.
We've been absolutely destroyed by delivery delays and COVID. Half my crew, half my team are down with COVID, they still are. And it's been impossible to finish the show. And I can't give you what I have right now. And I'm gutted. I'm gutted, and I'm sorry it's so last minute.
I look at Adele and I think, calm down. It's only a concert. It's only a music show.
Well, she was being paid £500,000 a night, and
no wonder she's
apparently,
crying then. No wonder,
well,
right.
apparently some people had paid $30,000 to go to the opening night. So she's also crying tears for people who've paid an awful lot of money to go and see her debut in LA. But presumably,
Do you not think it's
those
like
tickets
a night
will be
of misery?
refunded.
A night of misery with Adele in Las
No,
Vegas.
I love Adele, and
But
so
you think she
no,
sings
everyone
miserable
loves Adele.
songs.
No, stop it. No more miserable than Meat Loaf. Sorry, I shouldn't speak
I
ill.
will do anything for love, but I won't do that. At least he was a man of principle.
Oh, God, well, Adele, she was rolling in the deep. What was she doing? I don't know, I can't think of
She's
she was
always just moaning
something
about
on the pavement.
people who have left her.
Yeah, but it's people can relate. People like a good... I love belting out a tune terribly to Adele, and Meat Loaf, has to be said.
Listen, I want a bit of happiness, a bit of love. Just say Las Vegas to me, you think Elvis. No one's going to top that, so there you go. That's it.
There we go.
So, have you ever been to one of those virtual reality Elvis concerts?
Funnily enough, I haven't, no.
Well, there's a joy that awaits you.
Good look
that.
forward to that.
You walk in and these screens, and there's Elvis in different screens, and then within seconds you just believe he's there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
You think I look a bit like Elvis?
just like him, especially in your blue suede
in his
shoes.
glory years, you know? Oh yeah.
Do you know what? In the old place we used to work, you did dress up as Elvis. I was about to say Boris, so that's another one of your impressions. And you've dressed up as Donald Trump. In fact, it turns out you've got a bit of a history of doing cameos.
But that thing about Meat Loaf, I didn't know he was in 65 movies.
Yeah. Rocky Horror Show, all of them. Fight Club.
Wow.
Yeah. Superstar he was. Anyway, that's terribly sad news. He's passed away at the age of 74. We'll be reflecting on that later in the show. We'll also be joined shortly by our Wales reporter Lily Hewitson, live from Cardiff, as they change the rules on stadium attendance. See you in a moment.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
So the developing story in the breaking news that we have for you this morning is that music legend Meat Loaf has died at the age of 74. A couple of people to talk about this now. Beside me, music broadcaster and journalist Liz Kershaw, and editor of Kerrang magazine, Mick Wall, who can also join us. Mick, are you there? I spoke too soon. Anyway, Liz, Meat Loaf, what did he mean to you in terms of your music history?
Well, I'm old, aren't I, Eamonn? And I remember buying Bat Out of Hell in 1977, 78, and it was the album. And wherever you went, we just had it on repeat. And it was so different because of his powerful voice.
Yeah.
And he'd been on stage musicals before that.
Yes.
Hair and Rocky Horror Show and stuff, and in films. And he'd had that operatic quality. And it was just so different. And we'd belt him out.
You see, it's funny you should say that operatic quality,
Yeah.
because, you know, you could look at him and say he was a big clown, a big buffoon or whatever it is, but he was much, much more than that.
He was very skilled
huge physical
vocalist.
presence.
Yeah, skilled vocalist, hence his nickname. Skilled vocalist and yeah, a really powerful voice. And performer, you know, the videos for that as well. So that was my first encounter with Meat Loaf. He sold 43 million copies of that album.
Incredible.
And it's the 38th best-selling, still to this day, it's the 38th best-selling album in the UK ever.
Wow.
And it was brought out 47 years ago.
Yeah, and great artwork as well.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what I loved about, you know, the vinyl. But in later life, he had another big hit when Bruno Brooks and I were doing the breakfast show on Radio 1. We were a cheeky little couple and we had such a laugh. He brought out a song, do you remember? I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. So we were given that to play, and then me and Bruno just sat there and went, well, what is it? Yeah. And we had a phone in, you know, some from it not broadcastable. We could never play that record.
Did we ever get the answer to that?
No, but it's recently, I don't know if they'll pull it now, but he's currently featuring in a TV ad. And at the end, the punchline is something like, well, what won't you do?
Yeah.
So it still
let's see,
resonates.
we've got Mick Wall.
Oh, Mick Wall, he'll know a lot more than me.
Music journalist, author, presenter as well. Mick, you actually wrote a book about Meat Loaf as well, Like a Bat Out of Hell. Do you know he would do anything but he wouldn't do that? Did you ever find out what that was? and maybe you can't broadcast it, I don't know.
Well, there's a whole story behind that song, but the thing about Meat Loaf is I knew him and met him on many, many occasions over the entirety of his career. And he was a character. He was it sounds like a pun, but I don't mean it that way. He really was a huge personality, a huge character. He was a great actor. He was a great theatrical presence. He wasn't a songwriter. That was all done for him by his partner, writing partner, Jim Steinman. But I think people don't realise Meat Loaf did, you know, probably over 50 movies. He was on TV a lot. He started out in theatre doing Rocky Horror Show. He was one of the original National Lampoon touring people that had been invited to become part of the original Saturday Night Live cast. He turned that down because he wanted to pursue his musical career. I literally just got this news about him passing away a few minutes before you, and I'm really sad. I think that for me, the sad part is that he has been very ill for quite a few years. He hadn't done a show for over 5 years. He had actually collapsed at the last show he did, which was in, I think, Toronto in Canada about 5 years ago. Various plans to have him back and tour had to be scrapped. And it really is, I guess, the end of the Meat Loaf story in many ways. Jim Steinman himself, he died just 2 or 3 years ago. So this is a monumental figure in the history of rock. His album, I heard what Liz was saying about what a big selling album it is in the UK, which is absolutely spot on. It's also one of the top 10 best selling albums of all time. Every single one of the 7 tracks on the original Bat Out of Hell album was released as a single and became a hit. And when you look back at you know, this idea of this kind of very cinematic, orchestral kind of rock, and anybody that saw the Bat Out of Hell stage show 3 or 4 years ago will attest to the fact that long before video. You know, people were receiving pictures in their head of Meat Loaf or his song characters riding motorcycles off the top of cathedrals and bursting into flames. I mean, this was a guy who was really ahead of the curve in terms of theatrical performances and how to take rock and roll and pop music really and make it a very visual medium. So yeah, another one of a kind that we will never see again. Certainly not in music.
Mick, is ranked in the top 100 rock stars of all, rock vocalists of all time. Where would you put him? You know, with all the competition for, you know, the likes of, say, Robert Plant and
yeah.
Paul
Well, there's
Rodgers
a lot of
people.
There's a lot of competition. There are many people who have fantastic voices, but I think in rock music in particular, it's the personality that you bring to the performance. It's the character that you bring. I think vocalist is kind of a more apt description. There are many people classically trained who could sing better than Meat Loaf, but no one could have delivered a performance, could have embodied those songs. I mean, if you look at those, as I say, he was a pioneer. He was one of the first to embrace video back in '77. And if you look at those performances, there's a very famous performance on the Old Grey Whistle Test where his co-star, he always had a female vocalist with him on stage, where they completely enact the song. And it was very much the story of Beauty and the Beast. And there's a fantastic bit where he embraces her and they have this long, long, long kiss. That, I think, was more important than whether he was a great singer. He was definitely a great singer, but there are lots of great singers in rock. Until Meat Loaf came along, I think the only, you know, someone like David Bowie, obviously very theatrical, but Meat Loaf brought that kind of specifically American, cathartic, like Bruce Springsteen, but with fairy dust, you know, like Bruce Springsteen as imagined by Andrew Lloyd Webber. He really did take the whole genre of rock music into a very specific space that really only he owned. I mean, I'm struggling to think of anybody really that followed that could not just bring a very theatrical performance, but the very essence, the music itself. It is so expressive, so volcanic. It's so completely over the top that it really does belong in the realms of theatre, of cinema, of performance. And he was a fantastic actor, fantastic performer, and I think all of that came with his ability to sing so well.
And of course, he was, you know, as you say, loved for his music, but he was also, I suppose, something of a heartthrob. Can you tell us a little bit about his personal life? I mean, we know that his, what don't you think, with his big stage presence and his long hair, and he would singing all these love ballads. No, okay, is that not a fair description? I just wanted to know what his, you know, what his personal life was like, because we understand his wife Deborah was by his side, and his daughters Pearl and Amanda. I mean, was he very private? Did he, you know, keep himself to himself, have a long love story?
Well, in terms of his marriage to Deborah, yeah, that was private. He had relationships before that, but when I was researching the book, I was quite surprised to find out just how insecure and fragile he always was in relationships. Before Deborah came along, he wasn't a successful ladies' man in any regard, even after he became world famous. I think it's important. I'm looking at the pictures you're showing, and they're obviously of the Meat Loaf that we remember in recent times. But if you look at the guy that sold 1 trillion records back in the late 70s, he weighed about twice as much as you see him in these pictures. And he didn't find it easy to get girlfriends, even when he became a rock star. And it kind of became part of the sort of tragi-comic aspect, I suppose, of his appeal. These days, in the land of diversity and cancel culture, we're not allowed to fat shame, or we're not allowed to discriminate in any way, which is a good thing in many regards. But when Meat Loaf first became enormously famous, he was almost a figure of fun. You know, there was a certain kind of, like I say, Beauty and the Beast, a kind of an Elephant Man quality. Come and see the freak show. Can you imagine this guy, this freak, actually sings and runs around on stage and kisses women? I mean, it's impossible now to evoke just how strange that seemed at the time.
Well,
so
all your stories, Mick, it's really good how we reevaluate him. And you know, there'll be a lot of people today playing a lot of his music in remembrance to him. Mick, thanks for bringing the memory alive. Really, really appreciate your insight into everything and making us smile at sad news today.
I've had an answer to the question, but I won't do that. So we now know what that was. According to Johnny Gould, who's a broadcaster and often appears on the show, he says, "But I won't do that," is revealed at the end of the final verse. The female singer says, "Sooner or later you'll be having affairs." Meat Loaf shoots back with, "No, I won't do that." Hence the song is about monogamous commitment.
Oh, we never got that far, me and Bruno.
So there you go.
Well thought out, well thought out. Mick Wall, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. If you've got tributes, memories of Meat Loaf, what he meant to you at GB News, we'll be glad to talk about those. Liz Kershaw's going to stay with us because we're going to be delving into the newspapers right after this. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
So far, we've talked about all the political stories today with Giles Kenningham. Giles is a former press chief to David Cameron, and Liz Kershaw, whose expertise there as regards Meat Loaf was well used today.
Yeah, it's really sad when people, you know, 74.
Because it is the soundtrack to our years.
Yeah.
Now, there's a whole other story that's going to come out, but we can't confirm all of this as well.
Right.
And he was a vaccination denier, and there's a lot of talk on social media that this was COVID-related. We can't confirm that. We don't know that.
Whatever, it's too young.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of mileage still to come on this Meat Loaf story, but very sad about his passing. Now, the passing of police stations, that's what we're going to talk, Giles, with you first of all. This is, I mean, you just wonder what goes on in the world. Half of police stations have closed. Right. Good thing, bad thing.
I think it's a bad thing. I mean, I know why it's happened.
Yeah.
Because they're saying the nature of crime's changed. It's more online now.
It's about saving money.
It's about, well, exactly. That's one of the arguments. They're saying it's about cyber crime. But I think from a visibility point of view, really, really important. You've got 2 police commissioners today who've come out and said, look, you need to actually bring them back, have them on the high street, get confidence back. And I'm all for it.
Once they go, how the heck do you replace them? Because they're turned into wine bars, restaurants,
because they're normally in prime retail spots on the high street, you're right, so how do you get them back? But I think really, really important. I mean,
it's really important, that visibility. I mean, you just want to know if something happens to you, where do you go, who do you turn to, who's going to be there, and it's a comfort blanket if nothing else.
Definitely, and I have to say, often you see a lot of crimes committed on high streets as well, especially at night when people have been out drinking. So just having them there might be a good deterrent. So
very good point, yeah. So you have all your pubs and your bars and people spilling out into the high street at 11 o'clock on a Friday night to the kebab van or whatever. But it'd just be nice, the physical presence of some cops or a place to report crime as well. So they're waking up to, I mean, these commissioners are saying, I mean, I don't know who it is who decides to sell these off. If it's police authorities, if it's local councils, if it's government. I mean, I presume central government says your budget's being cut. Find out how to fund yourselves now, and they say, well, it's either patrol cars or an office, is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the arguments put forward, that this is due to austerity. This is why this has happened.
Yeah.
But have you tried ringing the police? I don't mean 999, but just the police. I did, and I got passed around the country from force to force. Well, they decided whose crime it was. But it's also a case, you dial the local number.
And you get put to the central number.
Press 1 if you are being mugged.
Yeah.
Press 2 if somebody's breaking into your house. And, it's really difficult to actually
3 if there's a gun to your head.
I got, oh, no, it's not our crime. You want Lancashire police, you want Greater Manchester Police. Oh, no, it's not Greater Manchester. You need Lancashire Police. And
To your point about reassurance, they say that one of the most effective ways of combating terrorism comes from those community police officers who are walking around those areas, and they get into the networks of groups, and that's how they get to them. And so, the less of that we have, then, you think it's going to become more and more problematic.
Just social interaction. I mean, the worst, most frustrating thing is, as Elizabeth has just described there, and I don't care if you're booking an airline ticket, speaking to the bank, trying to book a doctor's appointment, whatever, it is appalling. It's as if it's a game which says, right, you think you're getting through the system, but we're now going to deflect you that way. See what you can do now. It's like some sort of game that you have to play, or just press hash to speak to an operator. Why don't you just say, speak to an operator from the first place?
Well, we were talking recently, weren't they, about a company baking and then the police forces buying and employing drones so that if you're somebody, I'm not saying just it was for women, but I think, if you're a young man, it's very dangerous to be out at night as well. So you just press this app on your phone and a drone would come and see if you're all right. Well, why couldn't you just have a police station that you can go in the door? I remember being followed years ago through Oxfordshire country lanes. I realised that I was being followed by somebody in a car. And when I got to Bicester, I just swung into the police station.
Yes.
And that was, so reassuring.
Yeah,
and
the way to do it.
Yeah, and you couldn't do that now because it's been sold off.
Have you seen that BBC drama, The Tourist, Jimmy Dornan?
Yeah, I've seen some.
He was followed by a car.
He was.
A big truck.
Big truck,
actually. That didn't end well. Liz, right, we go to the front page of the Express. So this is the idea that the Chancellor, there's now talk, cash help for millions in energy bills crisis. So we know that there is an energy bills crisis. It's there and it's going to get worse over the next few months. What's the suggestion here?
Well, as the cap on energy prices is likely as the year advances to go up to £2,600, that's a lot of money to keep warm. And there are millions of people, pensioners, whose only income is the state pension, so £600 to £700 a month. It's just not achievable to keep warm. So what they're doing is now proposing that for people on the lower tax band, so the under 40, the 20% rather than the 40%, they'd get £500. Can you imagine, towards the energy cost, can you imagine the bureaucracy involved in means testing, implementing and distributing that. Why not cut the price of our fuel at source and do that by removing all these green taxes? Yes, OK, we have to use less carbon, but for now, get rid of the green taxes, get rid of the VAT, and just.
But that's a way of
people...
doing it without looking as if you're doing it. I mean, here's the man who will be able to advise both of us on all of this. And the conundrum about this, because Liz is right, the energy crisis thing, it's appalling, it's awful, it's going to hit so many people who just can't afford, who can afford it. It's ridiculous. But at the same time, they're committed to all this COP business and what we're done. And no government's going to be seen to say, well, no British government's going to be seen to say, we don't care about the environment or the climate change or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, to that point, they say if they're going to get to net zero, there's going to have to be more and more state intervention because consumer behaviour isn't in the right place. You're right, big conundrum here. I mean, the media's now talking about a cost of living crisis. This is the next big headache for the government. It's not like, is there a cost of living crisis? There is one. Yeah. So they look this one-off payment. I suppose the question is, where's he finding the money? Down the back of the sofa? We've already had these huge bills wrapped up from COVID. Rightly so, the government stepped in and intervened. Rishi Sunak is very good at opening his chequebook, but when everyone hails him as this great chancellor, all he's done is spend money so far. He's actually got to save some money, bring the taxes in. But this is right. I mean, the fuel poverty thing is really, really concerning. I think your point at source is a good idea.
Well, yeah, and also, what hypocrisy about carbon neutral. We're saying we're not allowing fracking in this country, although we've got vast reserves of natural gas underground. But what we're currently doing is importing on giant tankers from the United States.
Someone else is fracked somewhere else.
It's fracked in Texas or whatever. It's deep frozen, and it's been shipped at great emission of carbon in fuel, tanker fuel, to this country. So we are consuming carbon fuels, but because we can say we didn't produce them, that's okay.
Fracking's a bit
we should be energy secure. And with the closure of nuclear power without replacement...
Which is why you need nuclear power, though, to come back.
Well, that was the evil fuel at one time, and now it's being hailed as the...
In my lifetime, I'd hear people saying nuclear power is a good thing.
No.
And yet you get the greenest of people now saying, oh, yeah, we're all into
quite clean.
Power.
Yeah, and we're paying $300 a barrel for oil from Saudi Arabia and the like. And we've got oil in the sea in Scotland that we're not allowed to pump
we could
anymore.
be Saudi Arabia, we could be Dubai, we could have the best roads, the best social care, the best NHS system, if we just agreed to the F word.
Fracking.
But it's not going to happen, is it?
It's like NIMBYism. People don't want it in their backyard. I don't want to have homes built in my backyard. I don't want this fracking to happen. But to your point, if it did happen, you know, we'd be a lot more energy secure.
I might not want it if I lived around Blackpool, and I might not want it if I lived around the South Downs. Yeah, it's human nature. But as a nation, we are importing fracked gas on ships. In ice form from the United States. How ridiculous.
Guys, we got to break off. It's been really enjoyable talking to both of you today. Giles, thank you for coming in. Lovely insights. Liz, brilliant to have you here today as well, as always. We now cross to Isabel now because a government minister is ready to speak.
That's right. Up next, the government is backing a car battery gigafactory in Blythe, Northumberland. British Volt's gigafactory will make up to 3,000 jobs, along with a further 5,000 jobs across the supply chain. And we're joined now by the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng. A very good morning to you, Secretary of State. Look, this is really great news. Next generation investment.
It's fantastic news. It represents something like £2 billion, more than £2 billion into the local economy. I think it's the biggest single investment in that part of the country ever. And as you say, there are 3,000 jobs on the main site, and there are 5,000 jobs in what they call the supplier park, which is next to the main factory site. So it's a huge economic opportunity and a great success story.
I'm very pleased to report that this morning. Unfortunately, we've also had bad news this morning. I just want to get your response to that before we move on to other matters. About the pop star Meat Loaf. It's been a breaking news for us this morning that he's died at the age of 74. Not sure if he was somebody that you followed, if you were into his kind of music, but some reaction from you?
Well, look, I'm not a particular expert on his music, but obviously he's somebody that I saw. I really enjoyed the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think he was in that. And it's very sad to hear of his passing.
OK, well, thank you for paying your tributes. Look, then let's talk about something else really important this morning, and you only have to look at the papers to see that once again we're talking about the chaos that is happening in Westminster, in your own party. There are allegations that the whips have been intimidating and blackmailing their MPs into towing the line. Is this something new?
Look, I haven't heard any of these allegations before. I mean, the idea that the Whip's office have access to funds that they can distribute at will, I think is ridiculous. All public spending goes through proper process. There's a proper official paper trail, if you like. There's a proper procedure through which public finance, taxpayers' money ultimately is allocated. So any idea that the Whip's office have this in their gift, I think should be challenged immediately. And clearly, if these allegations are true, that's a very, very serious allegation, and I'd want to see them properly investigated. Having said all of that, I haven't seen any evidence whatsoever that these allegations are actually in any way true.
Yeah, and those are the sentiments echoed, of course, by the Prime Minister, but it was Christian Wakeford who crossed the chamber on Wednesday, joining the Labour Party in that defection, that's come out and said that it happened to him, that he was told money for a school within his constituency that had been announced would be taken away if he didn't vote with the government on certain issues. I wonder, are you worried about these alleged recordings that the Times newspaper is reporting that some of these MPs have got and are prepared to make public?
Let's see the evidence. If they've got the evidence, they should disclose that, because these are very serious allegations made against people who act, in my experience, very professionally. So these are serious allegations. Let's see the evidence, and then we can pass judgment. And as far as Christian Wakeford's allegations are concerned, you should ask Christian and ask him for the evidence, because they're serious. As I say, they're serious allegations. But he's defected now. He's left the Conservative Party, and that's up to him. That's a question for him to provide the evidence to back up the claims he's making.
So, Secretary of State, how do whips achieve loyalty then? What's the most interesting technique that you've been on the receiving end of?
Well, they'll try and persuade people, and as they have done for decades. We've got a parliamentary system, and it's particularly the case when there is a tight majority, or for a lot of my parliamentary experience, we haven't had a majority at all. People have, I've had conversations with the Chief Whip, I've had, in the past, I've had conversations with my whips. I've generally supported the government. I think I've always supported the government, actually. But of course, there's a conversation to be had. But this idea that somehow funds are going to be withheld, I think is a serious allegation. It's not how the system works, and I don't understand why a whip would try and make those threats. It doesn't seem realistic or plausible to me.
Unless it's all symptomatic of this reign of chaos that we've been hearing so much about. And I wonder if it's becoming increasingly hard for you to continue to defend Boris Johnson and making it harder and harder for you to do your job.
It's very easy for me to defend Boris Johnson. He delivered Brexit. We've got the fastest vaccine rollout anywhere in the world. We've got the most open economy of all the advanced economies, particularly in Europe, which is in semi-lockdown, most of it. And we've got the fastest growing economy of the G7. So it's very easy for me to throw my support fully 100% behind the Prime Minister.
And just finally, we're very short on time, but I just want to get some reaction to the decision you took yesterday to cancel the energy line underneath the channel linking France to the UK because of the Russian investor involved. Is this an indication of the hardening of the line from the British government towards Russia in light of what's happening in the Ukraine?
I've got to be very clear about this. It's got nothing to do, a planning decision of that nature has nothing to do with geopolitics or political sentiment or lobbying or anything of that kind. I looked at the evidence and I made the decision I took purely on planning grounds, purely on the grounds of the environmental protections that they offered and other concerns.
Okay,
as you appreciate, it's very likely that we'll be taken to court, and I can't prejudice any legal process, so I'm not going to go further into details about how I took the decision I made.
OK, Kwasi Kwarteng, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, do stay with us. In the next half hour, we'll have some of the high-profile stars set to be spooked as part of the TV series Help, My House is Haunted. We'll be joined by a paranormal expert to find out more. See you in a moment.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Well, you're all watching from many parts, I would like to say the country, but we actually mean the world, and we're so impressed. We had one viewer today who got in touch with us from an aircraft, 42,000 feet in the air, coming from Los Angeles, able to watch us on YouTube. So it really does make the world a smaller place.
Hawaii, Switzerland, Dubai, you name it.
All there. Listen, so many things. The breaking news this morning is the death of Meat Loaf, the rock star. Karen says, I'm in pieces at this sad news. He embodied my youth, good times when life was uncomplicated.
Veronica said, as in the old joke, I would walk over hot coals to see you, meet you at cinema on Saturday if it's not raining.
Sean says, so sad about Meat Loaf, an iconic man, and the first record I ever bought back in '93. I would do anything for love. So that was there. And there's a nice statement from the family which talks about just staying with him from his heart to your heart.
I can read it if you'd like. It said, our hearts are broken to announce that the incomparable Meat Loaf passed away tonight with his wife Deborah by his side. Daughters Pearl and Amanda and close friends were with him throughout. We thank you for understanding our need for privacy, but from his heart to your souls, don't ever stop rocking.
Don't ever stop rocking. Now, working from home, because we started the show today at 6 o'clock and we were talking about a report into a work-life balance and how things have changed, how people have changed, how your reaction to actually commuting and travelling to work and spending 5 days a week in an office has changed. Work-life balance. Lynn says, I think it's time for people to go back to the workplace. It's not good for cafes, it's not good for restaurants, it's not good for transports, shops that rely on offices in towns and cities for their livelihood. And this next point, Isabel, is good. I mean, I would argue if you didn't go into big towns and cities, you would be using
your local
all those
facilities instead.
locally.
Absolutely, yeah.
But this is a very good point here. Also for younger people, you have to forge new friendships with colleagues. It's a huge part of learning and growing into who we become. How else do you get boyfriends?
Well, exactly. My first boyfriend, well, not my first boyfriend, one of my boyfriends was in the workplace. All right. This one from Paul says, it's nice for all the office workers having a work-home balance, but what about all us shop workers, tradesmen, van drivers, etc.? You'll probably find that those that get full sick pay tend to be off more, and some even treat it as extra holidays.
I totally agree with the full sick pay off more business because, you know, the best thing keeping you well is being self-employed. Because when you're self-employed,
you can't ever be sick.
You can't ever be sick. You know, that's the way it goes. But listen, these are your views, therefore it's your news and it's what is important to you.
And we also like to get out and about on the doorstep, which we have been doing today. We've been in Manchester, haven't we? We've also been in Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. Let's bring in our reporter, Will Hollis, who's out and about for us this morning. Very good morning to you, Will. You've been talking to people where you are about the big issues of the day, but also our breaking news that Meat Loaf has passed away at the age of 74.
Good morning. Yes, it's a delight to be joining you from Eastwood here in Nottinghamshire, right on the border of where Nottinghamshire meets with Derbyshire. It's starting to brighten up a little bit. It's a little bit warmer now for us journos out on the beat. Now, one of the reasons why I brought you to Eastwood today is because there's a very famous writer, D.H. Lawrence, who was born in this town, famed for things like Lady Chatterley's Lover, a bit of a controversial book. So it's nice to get out into these communities that are quite well known in terms of people have certainly heard of D.H. Lawrence, but it's also worth coming out into these communities because the opinions of people living in local areas really does matter. It's about getting out of that Westminster bubble, getting out of London and talking to people on their doorstep, live on GB News, on TV and on radio. And there is somebody behind this door. It seems to be a sort of a tea room. Hiya, I'm Will from GB News. Can I just squeeze in and maybe have a bit of a chat to you about what's going on for the news on live TV? Yeah. Fantastic. Let's just squeeze in this way. Here we are. Oh, fantastic. And it's lovely and warm in here. Like I said, it is starting to warm up a little bit. It was about 0 degrees earlier, but it's nice and warm in here. First of all, thanks for letting us into your shop. What's it called and who are you?
It's Darling's Tea Rooms and I'm Claire Wilkinson.
Claire, nice to meet you. We're talking about the big stories of the day. The big story that we're talking about is that 1 in 4 people are hoping, or at least dream of leaving their work-life balance, the pandemic. We've certainly changed the way that we work. What's business like for you as somebody who runs a tea room?
It's going well. We're reasonably busy and we really enjoy being here together. I work with both daughters, Laura and Beth, and we do all the baking. And we're just really enjoying it.
So work-life balance for you is that you've brought your home life into your work life, working with your daughters. What does that do for the family relationship?
It's really nice. We do the baking together, so we spend lots of time, and we've always spent lots of time together. I was childminder for 10 years before this, and that ended because the girls are grown up, and then we moved on to this. So, yeah, we all work together and we really enjoy it, enjoy being with us customers. So. And
this is a fairly new venture, is it, if you were a childminder before?
Yeah, we've been open 6 months. The tea rooms was actually ready at the beginning of the pandemic. We just got ready in the February when things started to all close down. So it took a long time to get started. We got to practice a lot through lockdown. So it's nice to finally be working together and working with the community.
That must have been such a tricky period to know that you were about to open, you maybe knew that you had that customer market and then suddenly you weren't allowed to open and then your customers weren't allowed to come in. What was that last 2-year period like?
Well, because we were ready, the local community had seen that we were ready, that we'd renovated this place. It was pretty much derelict when we started, and to turn it to this, and they were just rooting for us to actually open because a lot didn't know if we would actually open with being ready and having a full 18 months closed. So everyone was just really happy to be able to come and have afternoon tea and enjoy it.
And you're working with your daughters. One of the things that we're talking about is people leaving their job or wanting to leave their job. If one of your daughters said, listen, Mum, I'm packing it in, I've had enough of working in the tea room, what do you say?
I'd want them to be happy if that's what they wanted to do. I think through the pandemic, I think everyone's had a long think about what means most to them, and happiness is definitely something that's important, and well-being, and people being a bit more understanding about mental health. So, yeah, if they wanted to go. But I think we all have a great time, so I'm hoping they're not going to leave me anytime soon.
Yeah, one of the things we're talking about today is the breaking news that Meat Loaf, the rock legend, has died, the news coming out today. Is that somebody that you used to listen to growing up in your life?
Yeah, I heard him as I was growing up. He had Bat Out of Hell, some really big anthems. So, yeah, the fact that he's died, just heard it, yeah, it's really sad and it's a bit of a shock. I know it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people, but I can't imagine that the music that you might play in here for some of your customers would fit with Meat Loaf. What is the atmosphere like in the tea room? So it's mainly 1940s, 1950s music. So I think if Out of Hell came on, there'd be some funny looks. So yeah, it's all based around afternoon teas, nice music, very chill, escapism from everything that's going off.
I have seen, though, there is a few bottles of liqueur, maybe some spirits. I can't imagine that you're putting whiskey into people's tea in the middle of the day. So does it kind of change at night or something like that?
Yeah, on a Friday and Saturday, it's a cocktail bar, gins, we take the tablecloths off, have candles, soft jazz. So it's just a really chilled atmosphere for people to have a drink.
And do people still want that experience? We know one of the things that we often talk about is the closing down of pubs and bars and maybe places where people would come and socialise and have a drink or two drinks, mainly because of one of the reasons being that it's so cheap to get a 4-pack of beer and just sit at home watching the TV. Do you find that people still have that appetite to come and have a bit of a drink and a bit of an evening socialising?
Absolutely. This is a bit more calmer. You can sit and talk, bring family members, all ages. Not everybody wants the rowdiness of a pub. And this is just listen to the soft jazz and have a nice cocktail and just chill. And I think they do want to come out. Everyone's been stuck in at home a long time, and to be out and seeing people in the community and socialising is really important.
Well, thank you so much for letting me in on your doorstep on GB News TV and on radio. It's been an absolute pleasure to be out here in Eastwood in Nottinghamshire. So back to you in the studio, Eamonn and Isabel.
Well, what does Claire sell? That's a lovely looking little shop she has there. Well, are they little mementos and things? Does she have little things you can hang on your wall or ornaments? What sort of shop would that be?
If I can give you a really quick tour, so this is a tea room, so people come and they have their afternoon tea, but there's a whole... Yeah, it's a little tea room, so you come in and you have your little cakes. I've been very kindly offered a sampling of carrot cake. And
you timed that right, didn't you? You've come to the end of your stint. You know, it's 9 o'clock. You couldn't get a beer at 6 o'clock, so now you've gone into the Claire's tea rooms there. Nice one, like your style.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have a cup of tea and a cake, but I think most of this is decorative. I don't know if I can nick one of the teacups.
Oh no, show us your buns. Go on, let's see what have you got there.
Do you want to see what we've got over here? So it looks like there's a selection of cakes. I'm going to guess these just because Claire's on the other side. I'm going to guess that's some sort of Victoria sponge, some sort of fantastic double chocolate cake. I'm going to guess again that that's another form of a Victoria sponge. I never was very good at baking.
Coffee cake, I think. That looks like a coffee cake, Will.
Oh, I think, do you know what? It looks like, oh yeah, that one's a coffee cake there. We'll go with that. We'll guess that it's a coffee cake. Claire will tell me off afterwards because it's probably something completely different. Some sort of red velvet cake, we'll guess. And then right on the end, we've got a carrot cake with some walnuts. Is that roughly correct over there?
Yes. Lemon Victoria was the one you missed.
Lemon Victoria was the one that we missed, so I'm going to try and get a sampling of each and every one of these, and unfortunately you won't be able to watch me eating those.
No, you've earned it,
at the end of the show.
You've had a good stint today. Nobody would begrudge you that. Thanks very much indeed, Will. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed seeing around Eastwood. Why would we see Eastwood any other way?
Where were you the other day, Will? Because you promised us a cake from there and it hasn't arrived yet. Bakewell tarts. Yeah, you promised us a Bakewell tart, but it's not arrived.
It's on the way. I can confirm. I've been having a bit of an email back and forth between somebody that's part of that pudding shop, and they have confirmed that there is a Bakewell pudding on its way to you right now in transit.
You're top man. You keep on doing that. Thanks very much indeed. Well, really appreciate it. And that was our look around Eastwood, your views on the news. We're happy to reflect those. Will's right from the point of view that a Victoria sponge is really hard to beat. It's hard to get much better.
I'm just not a cake person, unless it's a coffee cake.
You are seriously weird.
I'm just a savoury person.
Battenberg?
Oh, I do like Battenberg, yeah.
See?
Yeah. A bit of marzipan sorts it out. Madeira cake I quite like. It's quite plain. Oh, gosh,
what I like
making me hungry.
really most of all is orange sponge.
No.
So you have...
Shouldn't have orange in cake. Yuck.
No, the flavour of orange, orange cream, orange sponge, orange icing over the top with slices of orange.
Oh no, that sort of bitter rind on the top. Your horror. You literally look like you've never known me. I'm a total stranger to you. I'm dead to you right now.
Right now?
Yeah.
Right now.
OK, should we move on? Let's look at the headlines.
She has got good taste. When we go for breakfast in the morning, she does like spicy things, don't she?
I do, yeah. Sorry.
You do like spicy things.
I do.
Have you been drinking last night?
No, we're digressing about cakes. I just don't know what to say. I do like spicy food, that's confirmed.
Battenberg. Not a lot of people like Battenberg, but I really do like Battenberg. I really do.
I really do too.
Right, OK, we really do like bringing you the news. The time's approaching 9:15. You're listening and you're watching Breakfast here on GB News with me, Eamonn, Holmes, and her, Isabel Webster. If I had to remind you, that's it. Here are the headlines.
It saw him sell over 100 million albums with hits such as I'd Do Anything for Love and Bat Out of Hell. He also starred in 65 movies, including Rocky Horror Picture Show and Wayne's World.
The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, has warned Russia's president to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake. Speaking in Australia, she said an invasion would lead to a terrible quagmire and loss of life.
They claim they want stability while they work to threaten and destabilise others. We know what lies down that path and the terrible toll in lives lost and human suffering it brings. That's why we urge President Putin to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake.
Actually, we've just said that.
And in showbiz, Adele has postponed the start of her Las Vegas residency, which was due to open today. She says the show simply wasn't ready. In an emotional social media post, she said her production team had tried absolutely everything to pull it together in time.
Now, do you believe in things that go bump in the night?
No.
What? You don't?
No.
Well, have you ever heard strange noises coming from another room? That could be a whole other different story. But, you know, we're talking about poltergeists, we're talking about things moving, we're talking about you see shadows, all that sort of thing.
I see shadows. It's usually the cat or something.
Yeah.
I think these things can always be explained away. But far be it from me.
What if it's not the cat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see something out of the corner of your eye without any explanation. Well, three of the UK's leading paranormal investigators have used their supernatural specialities to drive out spirits in haunted properties in a new series on Discovery Plus TV. It's called Help, My House is Haunted.
Ian Lawman joins us. He's a paranormal expert. Tell us more then about what this show is going to be doing.
Good morning, firstly. The show's, what it's about is that the three of us, myself, Barry and Jane, go into people's homes who's had problems for many, many years, and we're their last resort, really. So we go in and we do an investigation, we find out what's there, and we work with the homeowner, and then we get rid of that negative energy, all that spirit.
What is there? I'm looking at a double-page spread here in the Star today, and George Best's, the late George Best's ex-wife Alex, she's talking. I know she's part of the show, obviously, Ian, as well, and it's really interesting because even though she's moved home and it's somewhere George has never been, she believes George is there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we went in with a very sceptical mind, and we have to handle these cases with sensitivity, especially with an icon like George Best potentially being involved. So we walked around the house, we were very conscious of George being there. But what the evidence was for us, we have IR cameras locked off into all the corners of the room. Now, Barry was investigating in the house. I was outside. Jane was also outside. When the nerve centre contacted us, and that's where we look at the IR cameras and everything in basically the back of a van. And they contacted us and said, you need to look at this. We walked over to the van and we couldn't believe our eyes. An autobiography of George Best moved on the shelf. And that shocked us all. We was absolutely emotional. We couldn't believe our eyes, what we saw.
Now, you know, I'm sitting here in the studio and I swear to you, I have just had that feeling someone's walked over my grave.
Oh.
Did you not get that shiver?
I am, but I'm freezing and I'm underneath the aircon.
Well, it could be that. Or also, I literally had the honour of conducting George Best's funeral, and now I've got Yeah, you see, now, could there be something in that, do you think?
Well, I mean, there's no explanation why that book would move on its own. It was within a bookcase above the staircase, and, you know, it was packed, it was tight. We investigated it later on. We tried to make it happen by pulling it out. Could it be knocked? It was impossible to be knocked, and you can clearly see by watching the episode today, it streams today, you'll clearly see that book just slides out. And at this moment in time, Barry was on the staircase, and I was drawn to almost like a shadow figure on that stairs. And I said to Barry, look up, there's just something there. And I was seeing something on the landing, but this was behind him, basically. As you're walking up the stairs, it was above him. This is where the bookcase was. And it just slides out. It's just unbelievable. And it gave us all shivers, and it made us all very emotional. And Alex obviously.
Alex talks in this article today about on the day of George's funeral, she was leaving her hotel room and the shower literally just came on as she went out the door. Now, let me ask you this. The Catholic Church believes very strongly in exorcism. They have exorcists. They have a whole department in the Vatican devoted to this. I, as a Catholic, have always had every home I've moved into blessed.
Have you?
Yes, I have. Oh. Have you not had the priest trying to put holy water or whatever around the house? Yeah. No. I'm fascinated to hear here, Ian, what you believe is the whole connection between a property, a spirit, and if these spirits can be exorcised.
Yeah, I mean, what we've got to remember is that we don't need to exorcise every single spirit. So George Best wasn't exorcised. We moved George to the light. And George came because he wanted to give some messages to Alex. And he wanted forgiveness almost, really. And I think he put her through quite a lot. And he was a poorly man. But some spirits are beyond that, and some spirits need that extra help where they need to be exorcised. And I have a belief that if we're quite a negative or nasty person here, then also potentially we could be that person on the other side as well. And that's where the priest and that's when them properties need exorcising.
In this show, you go and visit lots of celebrity homes that could potentially be haunted. Should people always assume then that ghosts are possibly relatives coming back to visit them, as you describe in the case of George Best, or can they sometimes be malevolent, unpleasant, coming to torment them?
Well, one of the properties we went into was Aaron Kraskills, the YouTube star, and he was experiencing personality changes, and he does artwork, he's an artist as well. And in his studio upstairs, he started getting aggressive, and his artwork was becoming very dark and quite shocking, really, to be honest with you. And Jane Harris, our researcher and paranormal investigator and historian, she went and did some research, and where his property is, and across the road from where he lived, was an old brewery. And a gentleman was savaged by a dog. He had rabies, and he ran into the direction of Aaron's house. So we believe that was a person who now haunts that, or did haunt that property. And Aaron was getting very dry in the throat, which, with rabies, you have this phobia of taking on water. So that's why people see, people with rabies foaming at the mouth, because they can't get moisture in the mouth. So they've got that phobia. So this is why Aaron was getting quite aggressive in that property and painting these dark things, because this gentleman was mad. He was a madman because he'd had rabies.
Ian, I'm loving every bit of this. Ian Lawman is a paranormal expert. We're going to be with you every step of the way on this. I'm really looking forward to this. That is Celebrity Help. My House is Haunted, available to stream from today exclusively on Discovery Plus. Great show, fascinated by what you do. Maybe one day you'll come into the studio and talk to us more about what you do, Ian.
I'd love that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Oh, God.
I don't believe there's ghosts about. Look.
Oh, you really scared me.
Quivering
I just
wreck.
thought you were a madman, not a ghost.
Quivering wreck. I could have had the foamy mouth, everything, the whole bit.
Oh, I don't know. Let's take a break. Hannah Hope will be back with the Showbiz in a minute.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Time now for the Showbiz. Hannah Hope is in the studio. It's all about Adele this morning, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, so I woke up to the shocking news that last night she posted a very heartfelt Twitter video saying that she'd cancelled all of her Vegas shows, 24 dates, with just 24 hours notice. Now,
But all of them,
Yeah.
not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
No,
all of them.
The whole run is up in the air, and it's looking like it's going to be postponed, not officially, but until April.
And she's on £500,000 a day.
But also think of all the fans who've arranged travel to get there, holiday, they're staying in expensive hotels.
It's really
I
bad.
thought she'd only cancelled one
Yeah,
show
no,
or
it's
something.
massive. And some people had spent an absolute fortune on tickets, and I mean a fortune, $30,000 or something.
They were going for huge amounts of money. Now, what she did say in her video is that she didn't want to give the fans a show that wasn't ready, that the COVID had caused a lot of delays and lots of her crew were ill. But then I feel that, the show must go on. Sometimes you do just have to go when you're not feeling ready, don't you?
The way we did here. Yeah, 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
I know. So, the first show isn't going to be perfect. I have heard that she is a bit of a perfectionist. Potentially the set list was being changed back and forth. But it also throws into doubt whether or not she will perform at the Brits in 2 weeks' time. She was set to perform there, but you can imagine that fans might be a bit miffed seeing her come to the UK to perform when she wasn't delivering at home.
She could just sing a cappella, couldn't she? She doesn't need all the backing and all the lights. Just stick her on
Are
the
we
stage.
getting, will people's mood change or attitude change towards Adele? Do you think there's, people
I
are
love
looking at
her.
thinking, bit of a diva, bit
Well,
of...
there will be that, 100%. I mean, this isn't the first time she's pulled out of shows. Back a few years ago, she pulled out because her voice wasn't up to scratch, and then she had to re-perform those shows, but they were 4 years later when she re-performed those. So, yeah, let's hope that it gets underway. I do think that she should have just kind of gone on and done her best. I mean, it's not like she has a huge group of backing dancers or production. You are just going for her voice, I think.
Did you see her on An Audience With?
Yes.
When she was at the Royal Albert Hall, I think. Yes. It was, I don't know if it was at the Royal Albert Hall, but it was
London Palladium.
London Palladium. And she was just so human, and I think that's what we love about her. And then she had some problems with her makeup, and she invited her pal Alan Carr
came on
onto
stage,
stage, and then he
took over.
started singing. Oh, it was so funny. I mean, she was very good in that sense, and it goes to show she can kind of operate when things are going wrong.
Yeah.
She'd have been fine. She'd have cracked on for the
That was
money.
all rehearsed wrong. You're so naive.
You're so cynical.
Well, no, I'm telling you, it's absolute truth. Every
started
bit of that will
crying.
be produced and rehearsed.
Maybe.
Whatever. And then it's for people like you who just think, oh, that just happened.
She's so sweet.
I'd rather be like you,
happened?
Isabel. I'd rather
No,
believe.
What just happened here, of course, I was sitting here and talking to Isabel, and I went, boom!
Oh, don't. I'm
And
not
she
doing
jumped-
it again.
She literally jumped out of her
It's
skin.
going to be a meme before we know it.
Oh, no! But yeah, hopefully Adele will get back on her feet soon.
What would you say, just briefly, about Meat Loaf?
Yeah, very sad that he's passed. I did have the pleasure of interviewing him one time, and I was really astounded that he was so down to earth. He was actually a very shy fella. He loved to be on stage and create this stage persona, but behind the scenes, he just wants to hang out with his family and just stay in. He wasn't big on the whole celebrity thing.
They don't make many like him, do they?
No, yeah, it's always the oldies are the best ones.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Hannah. Always lovely to have you in.
Thank you, Hannah. Very good. That's all from us this week. You've got Anne Diamond, Stephen Dixon. They're going to be with you from tomorrow morning, all over the weekend from 6 a.m. So please do keep them company as well.
Yeah, and up next, it is Tom Harwood with the briefing. But from us for now, have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
Good morning. It's a cold start out there, certainly across the southern half of the country, one of the coldest of the winter so far, with a widespread frost. Many eastern areas will stay sunny today. In the west, more cloud than yesterday, but most places dry thanks to this chunky area of high pressure that will stick with us through the weekend. So again, the weekend staying dry for the vast majority. But that high pressure and the clear sky